Okay, so welcome again to the Zoom room. Here we are again for the evening session. Today is section 5 of chapter 4 we're on, which is called the ego body illusion. So 6 paragraphs, shouldn't be too bad, maybe only 4 hours. Probably 2 to 3, depending on how much discussion we have around it. So I've already done some translation for you. Where we ego body illusion, right? There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Sounds like an interesting subject.
It is. You see why the text is valuable, because you really dive quite deeply into things that the workbook just doesn't really go to this depth, does it? No. So each section is really like a lesson. He actually called them lessons the other day. It's like a lesson, and if we personalize it, it becomes very personalized, very personal to you, which is what it's about, really. Okay, so the ego body illusion, 6 paragraphs, off we go. Who wants to kick it off?
I'll start. All things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment. There are no exceptions except in the separate self's judgment. The ego exerts maximal vigilance about what it permits into awareness. And this is not the way a balanced mind holds together. The separate self exerts maximal vigilance about what it permits into awareness. And this is not the way a balanced mind holds together. Interesting sentence.
Yeah, maximal, maybe, should we say extreme vigilance about what it permits into awareness. This is not the way a balanced mind holds together. I mean, that does need a comma. Okay. Balanced mind holds together. Is that clear to any translation?
It's all right to me.
Oh. Holds together. What's the implication?
We talk about it like that, don't we? Holding it together, don't we?
Holding it together. Yeah.
Technology.
Balanced mind holds together. Holds. I'm talking kind of about integration. Balanced mind. How about stays right-minded? That's kind of what he means, isn't it? Balanced mind stays right-minded, holds together. I think it's just clearer if we say stays right-minded.
I preferred hold.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, to be fair.
Okay, we'll keep it. Holds together.
Okay,
it's just language I understand, really. Or
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Me too. Okay.
Just trying to minimise the time I'm watching it, you see.
Number 4, the ego is thrown further off balance because it keeps its primary motivation from your awareness and raises control rather than sanity to predominance. The separate self is thrown further off balance because it keeps its primary motivation from your awareness and raises control rather than sanity to predominance. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that needs any more. Keeps primary motivation, raises control rather than sanity. So what's its primary motivation? Keeps from your awareness.
Keep love away, to keep us not believing that the ego exists. Making it a real thing.
Believing we're separate. Yeah, that's its primary motivation. Believing we're separate. Keep love out. It never wants to show you that, but actually its entire system is just based on that one idea of a separate self and maintaining that separate self.
And that's why it was so difficult to do that exercise yesterday, because the ego was so sure. Every time we asked us what's your new belief, it was like, oh, love. Oh yeah, that one again, keep forgetting.
Yeah, it's interesting how much, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but yet it's not, there's a resistance, to it often, because the ego will do anything possible to keep love out. Remember one workshop I did, she couldn't say it. The lady was like, she just couldn't even say I'm unlovable, or I'm not worthy of love. Just couldn't get to it. And then the turnaround, it's like she went around and around and around. She couldn't just say I am love. It's like around and around. And
no, I get that totally.
How the mind,
yeah,
interesting how the mind works. Like, but it's so obvious, to everyone else it's so obvious watching, but
when I was doing some clearing this morning, and it was about heartbreak, and I've done things for forever, and I just could not say the words. I could not.
I am love.
No, I couldn't. Well, first of all, I couldn't say I released the heartbreak. Just couldn't say it. It's like stuck in my heart. It wouldn't shift. It's really hard. So yeah, I understand where she's coming from. It's just like that ego saying, no, you're not letting it go.
No. Computer says no.
Yeah.
Stuck. Just lodging that is, well, I guess that's what I do. That's what the Holy Spirit does to me.
That's why you've got to work with somebody, isn't it? Because by yourself, that'd be hard, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you could have done it on your own, you would have probably, wouldn't you? But it's like, okay, well, can someone navigate in there with you and really like get into the core of the ego?
Yeah, but when you're trying your own, you're either feeding the mind bananas or chasing carrots, ain't you? Because you're never going to get there, because the ego is more in control.
Yeah,
you're never going to get there with your separate self. So that's the problem. If you only know what you know, and you're trying to transform with the ego, then it's not going to work. You're gonna end up doing something, but the ego's really hijacked it. And there's lots of spiritual paths, so-called spiritual paths, personal growth. There's lots of things where the ego goes along quite happily. It's okay, that's fine. I'll go along with you. I'll be with you, and I'm still there. You think you've got rid of me, but actually I just shapeshifted. I'm still there. The separate self is still there. Oh, you want to be a better separate self? That's okay. We can do that. Better separate self. That's okay. You're more money, more power, more better health, better relationship. Yeah, that's okay. We can do that. And it can accept all of that, you see, because it's a better separate self. But as soon as you go, no, actually you're not even separate. You don't even exist. And it feels really, really challenged. It's like, whoa, okay. I don't like the direction this is heading in at all. We've got to stop this. And then the brakes come on when resistance comes up, and then the game's on. And it's like, as Sherlock Holmes would say, the game is on, Watson. The game is afoot, I think was the game is afoot. The game is well afoot now, 4 weeks into the course, I'd say. So we carry on.
Okay. Number 5.
Yeah.
The ego has every reason to do this according to the thought system which gave rise to it and which it serves. The separate self has every reason to do this according to the thought system which gave rise to it, which it serves. Sane judgment would inevitably judge against the ego and must be obliterated by the ego in the interest of its self-preservation. Sane judgment would inevitably judge against the separate self and must be obliterated by the separate self in the interest of its self-preservation. That's crazy.
Now, we could also translate ego as belief in separation. What do you think? Sort of been debating whether sometimes separate self seems to work better What do you think? Belief in separation?
I did like the belief in separation then. I thought that would be quite good.
Hmm.
But it doesn't quite work in some of the sentences, does it?
Some of it doesn't work,
But it's not all of them. It's just that I think it's to be mindful that separation and separate belief is the same kind of.
Well, the belief in separation leads to a separate self. So they are kind of synonymous. But belief in separation exerts extreme vigilance about what it permits into awareness. The separate self is thrown further off balance. So you see, their separate self would be better, wouldn't it? Because the belief in separation doesn't really get thrown off balance, but a separate self does. Because it keeps its primary motivation from awareness and raises control of sanity to predominance. Separate self has every reason to do this according to the thought system, which is the belief in separation which gave rise to it, which it serves. According to the thought system of separation. Okay, yeah, we'll just be mindful of that. So maybe sometimes belief in separation, sometimes separate self. Number 6.
Did I not do that? Same judgment would inevitably judge against the separate self and must be obliterated by the separate self in the interest of its self-preservation.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to go.
Okay. So what's he saying here in the summary?
The ego doesn't want to go anywhere, and don't know how to put it. Well, the ego would, wouldn't it? It would fight to survive.
Yeah. So we'll do a personalized summary. So my belief in separation exerts extreme vigilance about what it permits into awareness.
This is not the way I would have a balanced mind.
Not the way
my mind holds together.
But it's interesting he uses balanced because the whole thing is there isn't really balance. It's just because balance implies duality, doesn't it? A balanced mind. Maybe that needs a bit of translation because balance implies two. It's a balancing act between two thought systems or two ideas. Which isn't really what this is about. It's about how about a sane mind? Yeah, a sane mind holds its sanity. How does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, sane mind holds on to its sanity. Because that's really what a balanced mind is but balance is not really a concept in the course. He's not talking about balancing illusions and truth. He's talking about ridding yourself entirely. So I don't think he's ever used it before. I haven't seen him use balance in any other context.
What does it mean that
it implies duality?
But does it mean the separate self is thrown off balance, further off balance? Because separate self is always off balance. So it throws it off further.
Further off balance.
Because when you're in sane mind, truth is no balance, is there? It just is.
Yeah.
The separate self is always
that's what I mean.
Balance.
Yeah. So and further off balance. Because it keeps its primary motivation from awareness and raises control. So the ego is thrown further off balance. Interesting. So not a way a balanced mind holds together. Okay, so balance sort of implies some kind of duality there, which I don't really like that word balanced. ego is thrown further off balance, even though he's saying, what it permits, and this is not a way of balanced mind. Okay, so it's not a way of balanced mind. Ego is thrown further off balance because it keeps its primary motivation from the awareness and raises control rather than sanity to predominance. So how about we say the mind? Mind is taken further away from sanity because separate self believes and keeps its primary motivation from your awareness and raises control rather than sanity to predominance. And there we got the sanity coming in. Further off balance, further away from sanity. As a separate self believes in, keeps its primary motivation from your awareness and raises control on sanity's predominance. What do you think of that? Okay? Makes sense?
Yeah.
I think it's just clearer. I don't like the balance idea because what are you balancing? You know, the idea of a non-dual teaching is you don't balance truth and illusion. You let go of illusion entirely, and the mind just is in the right mind. There's only one thought system. So where's the balance then? A balanced mind. Maybe he's talking more about a kind of a stable mind. But and let's just say a sane mind, I think, holds on to sanity, and then that leads nicely into the next sentence. Control rather than sanity to predominance. So the ego is completely insane, but it's a tightly controlled system of insanity. And I think we've all experienced that. If you see someone who's really quite rigid and tyrannical and really rule bound. Now it's not sane, but they think it's sane, and the rules seem to make it sane. You look at it and you go, it doesn't make any sense at all. So control rather than sanity to predominance is the ego's motivation. Okay, and separate self has every reason to do this, according to the thought system which gave rise to which it serves. Because why? The sane judgment would inevitably judge against it. And it must be obliterated by it. It must be obliterated in the interest of its self-preservation. Okay, so it's all about protecting its illusory identity. Okay, so let's copy that. Let's do a summary. Okay, so my belief in separation exerts extreme vigilance about what it permits into my awareness, and this is not the way my mind stays sane. The way a sane mind holds on to its sanity. This is not the way I remain sane.
My mind is taken further away from sanity because my separate self believes.
A separate self keeps its primary motivation from
my awareness and raises control rather than sanity to predominance.
Okay, and use control of sanity.
My separate self has every reason to do this, according to the thought system of separation which gave rise to it and which it serves. Probably don't need all that in there, do you?
Gave rise to a separate self, in which it serves has every reason. Has every reason to do this. Sane judgment would inevitably
judge against the separate self and must be obliterated by it in the interest of its self-preservation on my separate self. Okay.
My sane judgment. So he's talking about the judgments of the Holy Spirit, a right-minded judgment. Say right, sane or right-minded judgment?
Sane works, I think. It's normal terminology in human life, isn't it?
Sane judgment. Sane judgment. So it must be obliterated by it in the interest, in the interests of its self-preservation, interest of its self-preservation. How about to preserve itself. Okay, I want to read that from the top.
My belief in separation exerts extreme vigilance about what it permits into my awareness. And this is not the way my mind can remain sane.
Remain
sane. My mind is taken further away from sanity because my separate self keeps its primary motivation from my awareness and values control over sanity. The thought system of separation which gave rise to my separate self and which it serves has every reason to do this. My sane judgment would inevitably judge against my separate self and so must be obliterated by it to preserve itself. Sounds like a horror movie, doesn't it?
Yeah. Which it is. It's like a horror show going on in your mind. And it's like a parasite taking over, trying to...
It's like Elaine's parasites in the flat.
Yeah. Crazy stuff, but you can look at it. You can see it clearly. You know, he's giving us all the tools, all the tricks of the ego in this, and especially in the text. You know, he's saying this is how it works. This is what it does. So just be aware of it. And if you spot it, then it's no longer you. If you know that that's this entity, then there's an awareness outside of that entity that's able to observe it.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Once you can observe it and see it, you're not it.
Otherwise, otherwise it's taken you over and you believe you are it and there's no other awareness. Then you're a slave to it. You know, it's now got you believing that this voice in your mind is the truth and this is who you are. I remember once again on a workshop saying to a girl, she was like, said, yeah, so that, that voice in your mind, the crazy one that keeps going on and on and on, and all the fears and the doubts and the worries, and, that's not real. And she went, really? That's like, it was a mind blow. She's like, really? So you're telling me that thing that's going all the time, that's not real? Like, yeah. And I was like, whoa. Okay, I mean, that's actually good news because that thing drives me crazy. But most people haven't had the awareness to be able to look at it and say, okay, that's just going, but there's some awareness beyond it that can observe that. I'm going, okay, thoughts come, they go. I'm spinning around, seemingly spinning around in this maelstrom of thought and emotion. But actually, I can observe that. I'm not caught up in it. So it's this awareness that's key. Your sane judgment, once you have that awareness, you can really see it, then the sane judgment of the Holy Spirit will look at that and go, that's insane. That's what a crazy system. That doesn't make any sense. So that's your sane judgment, your right mind. So, no, but it really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So why am I believing it? Then you see, what's the point? And the Holy Spirit says, well, there's no point. Just let it go. The separate self isn't real. You can't justify this thought system. Don't try and maintain it. Just, let it go entirely. It's just the only answer. And nothing else is going to work. But it's a process of getting to that answer. So we try all kinds of things, all kinds of ways. The ego's got all these routes, ducking and diving, and it's trying to just preserve itself. And then finally, if you come to teaching like this, you realize, well, all that ducking and diving has really got me nowhere. I actually just need to face the simple truth that the ego cannot work. The ego doesn't work. The idea of separation is a train smash. It's a disaster, and I don't want it. I'm willing to let it all go and return my mind, back to spirit, which is just the belief to start with, and the knowing of perfect oneness and nothing else. Okay, so Sally, do you want us to summarize that? What's been said in that first paragraph?
The belief in separation is extremely on the game and won't let us see it. And the only way out is to recognize it and obliterate it.
Yeah. When he says so must be obliterated, the ego tries to obliterate your true awareness, the Holy Spirit, which it can never do, but it keeps trying. And the Holy Spirit is trying to completely undo the ego. So there you have the fundamental conflict. You can't have both in your mind and be sane. It's one or the other. And so, that internal conflict really defines the human condition, doesn't it? That's the problem. That's why we feel conflicted. Every single problem we experience has its genesis in that simple, that split in the mind. And Christine, you were saying in a text message, you mind if I share that? It might be quite interesting for people who privately message me, with your permission, because there's a bit of teaching around that I'd like to do. Is that okay? I don't know if Christine, are you there?
I think she's on mute. Can't hear her.
There we go. She's there, yeah.
Can't hear you.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason, you're not coming through. We can't hear you.
Can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yeah. So you said something in your text message to me. It's like,
so you want to expose the way I was defending my ego.
well, it's just for teaching purposes. So we'll just
yes, I fell right into it, and then I had to say what you said this made it all very clear.
Yeah. So the unsure is about the external, not about myself. Okay. Pain in the neck is not the throat. Okay. So it's about the external, apparently. But I said, if you're unsure about anything, it always starts because you're unsure about who you are. You see, that's the split. We're only uncertain about the external world because we're uncertain about who we are. And then we project that onto the world. So all doubt starts with believing a false self-concept is true. And then we project this doubt onto the world, the self-concept made, and perceive it to be uncertain and fearful. You get that? So it all starts with the self-concept. And if I doubt that, if I've denied my true self and I've got a false self going on, then that is what causes me to doubt everything. Because I now have two alternate interpretations of things based on the different selves and the different thought systems, and they're in conflict. So now I'm not sure which one's which. What's really going on here? Which is correct, which is not. And all doubt starts there. Do you see that? If you're really clear about who you are, then there's no alternative. There's one single perception that you're going to have clearly of everything. There's no split there. There's no alternative. So then there's clarity. But as long as there's doubts about yourself, then you project that into the external world. And so the doubts is actually always about yourself. Yeshua is just teaching us, look to the self, look to your mind. It's not about, the external. And then you said stuff about COVID and, it's all fine. You had clarity there about, what's true and what's not. Well, any doubts that you would have, let's say, take COVID as an example, any doubts about what to do would have originated in the self that you identify with. And if you're confused about who you are, then you're going to be confused about how to respond to something like that, aren't you? So you think you're a body.
Confused about how to respond. I stood my ground.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm just saying hypothetically. If you're not sure, then you think you're a body. Then it would seem to be logical that okay, well, I'm a body. I could die. There's a virus. There's external causation. There's a whole thought system going on there. Then it would make sense to take a vaccine if I believe all of that, wouldn't it? Because one belief leads to another. So you see, COVID was a great learning, I think, for everyone, because you could see how it's part of a thought system. And if you believe the separate self and you believe you're a body, then it's inevitable that you're going to go down that route, because that seems to be the answer. Okay, well, I'm a body. I could get this dreaded virus thing. It's out there. It's everywhere. But, they've developed a vaccine, which they're saying is going to help. Okay, well, what have I got to lose? I'll take the vaccine. But there's a whole series of beliefs that have gone into that decision of whether to take the vaccine or not. It's a thought system. And, what I saw, what you see very clearly, is the people who took it without question are not generally on a spiritual path. I didn't know anyone. Well, actually, the two people, the people who I mentioned, Emily Bennington and Robert Perry, they took it. And I was quite surprised. I'm like, well, that's interesting, because I think they're the only so-called spirit people on a spiritual path, and a very profound one, being A Course in Miracles, who I know took it. Everyone else said no, not interested, because there's something about the thought system that just doesn't resonate. That's external causation. You're being told this. Do you really believe that? The spiritual path has questioned us, has taught us to question everything. Say, well, is this really true? And I absolutely, in Byron Katie's work, do you know her work?
Yeah.
She's saying the 4 questions. First question, can you know this is true? Do you know this is true? And then the second question again, can you know this? Absolutely know this is true. And you can't. There's no way with any of that you could know that it was true. So, when in doubt, do I absolutely know that there's no virus and the whole thing was a hoax? No, I can't say I absolutely know that. But when in doubt, rather do nothing than start, going down a path where there's no evidence to support it. But it's based on a thought system. And if you clearly know who you are, then it's very clear. I mean, it's just like, no, there's no way I'm doing this. Just something in me doesn't resonate with this at all. I can spot the ego a mile away. But if you're not sure of who you are, then you would have had confusion. You would have gone, well, I'm not sure, so maybe I better just play it safe and take it. So all doubt originates with the self-concept. That's really the point. Can you see that? And so any doubt you've had about anything is well, who am I? Really, that's what it comes down to. Because if I knew exactly who I was, then there would be no doubt. I'd know what to do, wouldn't I? There's no doubt in the spirit. It's very clear, gives you very clear direction. And there's only it's a single thought system. It's a single self, a single thought system. It's all in one line. You can just allow it to come in and direct. And then there's no confusion because there's no alternative. There's only one choice. But the separate self, the alternatives, the whole construct that's created, where we've apparently got all these choices to make, then we're unsure about them, is why we're unsure. Okay?
Yes.
Clear about that? All right. Shall we, happy to move on, everyone, from number 1?
Yeah.
Number 2, who would like to read that? Christine, will you read for us?
A major source of the ego's off-balance state is its lack of discrimination between the body and the thoughts of God.
Okay, and then the alternative.
A major source of separate self's off-balance state is its lack of discrimination between the body and the thoughts of pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Yeah, the thoughts of God. So thoughts of God is an interesting one, because what are the thoughts of God? What would God think? Well, certainly not anything in form. There's no subject-object duality, dualistic thinking, is there? That's what capital thought. So I prefer awareness and the pure formless awareness of perfect love, because that's all really the thoughts of God are just that awareness. It's not thought in the way we think of thought at all. It's just an awareness of perfect love that is beyond, certainly way beyond the ego's definition of what thought is. There's no subject-object duality there. I, separate self, perceive this, think this about something else, object. That's part of the perceptual domain. It requires duality. So thought of God is non-dual by nature, because he's defined it as God, the ultimate. So it's really just the pure awareness of itself is the thought of God. Just holding to that state and nothing else. Okay, so he's saying one of the reasons the ego is off balance, major source of the separate selves, off balance state. We include balance here somewhere. Not the way of my mind. Mine is taken further away from sanity. So ego's off balance state, major source of the ego's
insanity.
Just call it insane. Yeah, insane. Insane state is its lack of discrimination of the actually, I'm just doing it in the wrong one there. I want to do it in here, separate selves. Insane state is this lack of discrimination between the body and pure formless awareness of perfect love. Okay, so the next one, thoughts of
God are unacceptable to the ego. Sorry. because they clearly point to the non-existence of the ego itself. Thoughts of pure formless awareness, perfect love are unacceptable to the separate self. Because
How would we say pure formless awareness of perfect love? So the awareness of perfect love
is unacceptable.
The awareness, let's do the awareness. The awareness of perfect love is unacceptable to the separate self.
Because they clearly point to the non-existence of the separate self.
Unacceptable to, say that's the belief in separation. And he points to the non-existence. And then these are hyphens. It's non-existence of ego itself, of the belief itself. Clearly points to the non-existence of the belief itself. So this awareness just undoes the belief. You can't have a belief in separation and also have awareness of perfect love. They are mutually exclusive, contradictory statements, states of mind. Okay.
The separate self, therefore, either distorts them or refuses to accept them.
I'm going to put therefore at the beginning. Separate self either distorts
It.
them. Yeah, so what's he talking about? It's unacceptable. It clearly points to non-existence. Lack of discrimination between the body and pure formless awareness. So the separate self either distorts them or refuses to accept them. Because perfect love is unacceptable. Okay, so he's talking about the thoughts, was the original. Unacceptable. Therefore, separate self either distorts it or refuses to accept it.
It cannot make it cease to be.
Cannot make them cease to be. Cannot make them non-existent, maybe? Cease to be. It's okay, I think. However, it cannot make them cease to be.
Or disappear.
Cannot make it.
Make it disappear.
Cannot make it cease to be. Cannot destroy it. Cannot destroy it. So belief in separation either distorts it or refuses to accept it. However, it cannot destroy. Cannot destroy this awareness. Okay. Cannot destroy this awareness.
It therefore tries to conceal.
So let's go back up here. The ego it therefore tries to conceal.
Not only unacceptable body impulses, but also thoughts of God, because both are threatening to it.
Okay, so
Tries to conceal not only unacceptable body impulses, but also pure formless awareness of perfect love. Because both are threatening to it. What does it mean by unacceptable body impulses?
quite good question. What do you think? What do you think he means? What are considered unacceptable, impulses in our society?
Loving.
Well, sex is an obvious one, isn't it? It's like you shouldn't have that impulse, but people do. To have sex, some random fantasy, whatever. So that would be an example, unacceptable body impulse. For someone else, let's say they had some issue with food, they were anorexic or bulimic, unacceptable body impulse would be to eat. I'm hungry, I want to, no, I've got to shut that down because that's unacceptable to me. So those are two examples of how the mind could view some impulse related to the body as unacceptable.
Okay.
So the unacceptable body impulses tries to conceal, but also pure formless awareness of perfect love, because both are threatening to it.
And conceal, what does that mean, to conceal?
Hide.
Conceal means to hide.
Hide. To hide.
To conceal, to cover over, to hide away, conceal. Tries to conceal. I think a good word here might be to repress. That's what conceal means. It's hidden in your mind, to repress. Classic example, would be in the church, and we all know what some of these Catholic priests got up to. It's come out. Well, that would have been an unacceptable body impulse, wouldn't it? They would have known, especially with that, they're priests, and it's like, I shouldn't be having this unacceptable body impulse that I, want to go and have sex with one of my choir boys. But the impulse is so strong that I do it anyway. Then I've got to cover it over. I've got to hide it, conceal it. And so there's a big cover up that we don't want to admit that, our priests could have could have these unacceptable body impulses because we're supposed to be so pure and holier than thou, and yet actually, these unacceptable body impulses were governing a lot of their behavior. So that's another example. Tries to repress, conceal, repress. What do you think? I think that's what he means by conceal. It's like actually just repress it, hide it away, don't see it, cover it over. But also,
I prefer conceal.
you and everyone else, what do you think? Repress, conceal.
I actually thought hit, hide. Therefore, it tries to hide not only unacceptable body impulses, but also.
I prefer that too.
Hide.
It's more simple.
Okay, we'll make it hide. But also pure formless awareness of perfect love, because both are threatening to it.
Thank you, ladies. That makes it clear.
Yeah, is that clear? Hide rather than conceal. We've got to bear in mind there might be many non-English speakers reading this, potentially. It's translation as well. So needs to be try and be as clear and simple as possible.
Yeah, I find this text difficult actually, this particular paragraph, or even the first one, I think, or this one, yeah. Mm-hmm. Find it difficult to understand. So.
Okay. Well, if there's anything else you're not sure about, just say. Okay, so
it's lack of discrimination. Like, I don't get this part. This a major source of the separate self's insane state is its lack of discrimination between the body and pure formless awareness of perfect love. So what? I'm not sure I understand what this means. This by lack of discrimination here.
It can't tell the difference. The lack of discrimination is the ability to discriminate or discern. Evaluate between two things and say, okay, well, I can see the difference between the body and pure formless awareness of perfect love. I mean, they're completely opposite. But the ego is treating them all as as it's confused between them, which is totally insane. Because how can you get confused between two things that are polar opposites? But there you go.
Yeah, that's why we're so confused.
Yeah, well, don't expect sanity. He's just trying to tell you.
Yeah.
This is how it works, even though it's not sane. This is how it operates. It's a completely dysfunctional system.
So can we even get a sane state? Is it even possible, a sane state?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
So that's the whole teaching. You can perceive things with your right mind. You can stay in your right mind even while you're in the dream.
Ego doesn't get in the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can have right perception and a sane state even in an insane world. And that's what we're training to do. If it wasn't possible, then we'd be stuck here forever in insanity. But it's actually very possible. It's actually logical, common sense will tell you that this ego is insane. That doesn't make any sense, and you shouldn't believe one word of it. But Yeshua's just got to train us a bit. We haven't forgotten that. And then we've been trying to make sense of an insane thought system for a long time. Trying to make it work, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
One day I'll get it right. Everything will come right. And one day never comes, because you're never going to get it perfect in the illusion, are you? Have you ever had a day where you're like, right, that's it. I've arrived. It's all done. It just never happens, does it? It's not how life works.
Yeah, when you're meditating, you think you've reached that state.
Well, meditation can take you beyond, the illusion of the ego. So if you're just in a very peaceful, blissful state, then you're home. That's the truth of who you are. But we come back into form, to time and space, and
Or
then
come
you've got
back
to
into
deal
the
with
external world, yeah, and then
and you've got to
Yes.
deal with it and perceive
Yeah.
it correctly
Mm.
and do the integration, which is necessary, which is what we're doing. Okay. So is that clear? Discrimination, what that means?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I think I get it. Yeah.
How about discernment instead of discrimination? Might be a better word. Yeah. Discernment. Is that any help for you? Lack of discernment between.
No, I understand the discrimination kind of, yeah, I kind of understand discrimination. It's just I couldn't get that sentence with the lack of discrimination. I could, yeah.
I like discernment.
Yeah, discernment is nice. Yeah. It's a nice word to understand.
So I can discern the difference, and the ego has no discernment because it's insane. But the spirit has absolute discernment. The spirit can tell you, okay, that's true, and go with that, and that's false. And that's what he's training us to do here. You see, through highlighting all the ego's ways, training us in its ways. We start to develop discernment. We're like, oh, okay, now I can see this. I'm understanding how this thought system works. And if it manifests in my experience, then I can see it, I can spot it, because I've been trained to do that. So he's like training us to be detectives of the ego, and to be able to really discern, what's ego, and then by contrast, what's spirit. And then obviously the choice becomes obvious. If we know what's what, then it's not that difficult to choose, is it? So that's a major part of this mind training, the discernment, ability to discern, distinguish between, evaluate the two thought systems.
And in the third, I'm sorry. In the third number 3, it says the belief in separation either distorts it or refuse to accept it. And the it stands for pure formless awareness of perfect love, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is capitalized. Yeah. Distorts it. So
it's, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Perfect, pure formless awareness of perfect love. So the ego is always going to distort it or refuse to accept it. Because if it accepts it, then it's game over for the ego.
Yeah, it's no longer existing then.
No longer exists. Yeah. So of course it can't accept it. Its whole existence is based on its denial. Okay, is that clear? So where were we? Being concerned primarily with its own preservation in the face of threat, the separate self perceives them as the same. Both are threatening. Okay, and then number 7, read the original. I think that's going to be the same, except for ego. And carry on, Christine.
By perceiving them as the same, the ego attempts to save itself from being swept away, as it would surely be in the presence of knowledge.
Okay, so
knowledge is brought in as part of pure formless awareness.
Yeah, knowledge should be with a capital K, because it's this transcendent domain of pure formless awareness. Now, how can you perceive them as the same? How can pure formless awareness of perfect love and the body be the same? It's insane. The body is form, and pure formless awareness is formless by definition.
Because it can't discriminate.
Yeah, because it's completely insane. So its judgment is highly suspect. It seems to save itself from being swept away, as it would surely be in the presence of knowledge. Okay, so in the presence of knowledge, capital K, that's the knowledge of truth, of oneness, of love. It's just simply going to be swept away. The belief cannot exist anymore in perfect oneness. I mean, it's completely obvious when you boil it down. That's why we do the translation. When you call it the belief in separation, then it becomes quite obvious, doesn't it, what it is. The opposite of knowledge. So it must resist knowledge. It must resist truth. Otherwise, it must maintain. Okay, so it's number 2. Let's do our executive summary of this. Okay, so major source of the separate selves. Same state is lack of discernment. Major source of my separate selves. Same state is lack of discernment between the body and pure formless awareness of perfect love. Okay, that's all right. Awareness of perfect love is unacceptable. So my awareness of perfect love is unacceptable to my belief in separation because it clearly points to the non-existence of the belief itself. Therefore, separate self either distorts it or refuses to accept it. The separate self either distorts it or refuses to accept it. Okay, happy with that. However, refuses to accept it, but it cannot. Cannot destroy this awareness. Forward tries the two therefores.
So it tries.
Cannot destroy. So yeah. So it tries to hide not only unacceptable body impulses, but also pure formless awareness of perfect love, because both are threatening to it. But also and being concerned primarily with its own own preservation in the face of threat. A separate self perceives them as the same.
You can cut that down into a shorter sentence. Those two sentences maybe become one.
Mm-hmm. Which
Being concerned primarily with its own preservation in the face of threat, must separate self perceives them as the same. Perceiving them as the same, belief in separation attempts to save itself from being swept away.
yeah. So you wanna switch the sentence around.
Just shorten it.
Okay. Being concerned primarily with its own preservation, face of threat, so my separate self
Attempts to save itself from being swept away.
separate self perceives them as the same. because it is concerned primarily with its own preservation, its own, in the face of threat. That's okay. Happy with that? We just switched it around. While perceiving them as the same, belief in separation attempts to save itself from being swept away. Save itself from being swept away, from being
Destroyed.
Destroyed maybe. As it would surely be. Surely be in the presence of knowledge. Save itself from being destroyed.
In the presence of knowledge.
By knowledge. So shorter. Okay, so you want to read that from the top?
A major source of my separate self's insane state is its lack of discernment between the body and pure formless awareness of perfect love. My awareness of perfect love is unacceptable to my belief in separation because it clearly points to the non-existence of the belief itself. Therefore, my separate self either distorts it or refuses to accept it, but it cannot destroy this awareness. So it tries to hide not only unacceptable body impulses, but also pure formless awareness of perfect love, because both are threatening to it. My separate self perceives them as the same because it is concerned primarily with its own preservation in the face of threat. By perceiving them as the same, my separate self attempts to save itself from being destroyed by knowledge.
Okay, so what's he summarize that? What's he saying in summary?
The ego is feeling threatened by sane judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And struggles to keep itself going.
Yeah, so it's confused between the body impulses and the impulses of or the pure formless awareness of perfect love, and so it's trying to hide the body impulses, and it's trying to do its best to repress or suppress the pure formless awareness from coming through. And so that's why we find it challenging when, it's starting to, so this kind of awareness is starting to awaken, and then often there's just this huge resistance. It's going to try and do everything to stop you from listening, to stop you from going there. Distraction and making you tired, and physical sickness and anything to stop you from really becoming aware of this
pure formless awareness of
perfect love. Because it's the biggest threat. It is the threat to its existence. So its strategies are obvious. Distraction, get you to focus your attention elsewhere, get you to go to sleep, get you so you can't pay attention, make you sick, so that you're too sick and distracted to focus, get you pursuing all kinds of goals that are just going to distract you from this one single purpose. And we've invented a world that does that very effectively, haven't we? Lots of distractions in this world.
I don't know how to meditate.
You don't know how to meditate. Okay, interesting. So if you're doing the meditations that I guide, yeah, does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Well, guided meditation can be a good start.
To develop this habit of breath breaks through the day and constantly being aware of how we've got to bring ourselves back to the stillness is the most important tool to be aware of the ego's distractions.
Because it requires awareness. That's the primary thing. Awareness of what's true and what's not brings the ability to make the decision and let go of one, keep the other. Without awareness, then the ego is you, and you're just running the program and you're not even aware of it. So all of these tools are about developing that self-awareness, making it much sharper.
It's actually quite sad how all these schools of meditation don't explain about the ego. There's no explanation of why we're doing meditation. This is the first time I've come across such an explicit description of what you've got to be aware of in avoiding the ego's games.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons, the primary reason to meditate is to undo the ego, so that you can become aware of what it is, what it's doing. What I've seen, because I've done quite a lot of meditation myself, and I went to a Vipassana retreat in Cape Town, Worcester. Seems like if you just do meditation, I'm not saying, I mean, it definitely helps, because people who don't do any meditation often really struggle with the course, to accept its teaching. But this lady, was the leader, she was the teacher. She'd done like so much meditation, like 6 hours. She was doing 4 to 6 hours a day regularly. And then she was doing, these 10-day retreats, and then 20-day retreats and 40-day retreats. And it was like just silence and just meditating. And then I spoke to her and I was like, okay, well, she should be really there to get this. So I wanted to see, what her awareness is. And really, she didn't really get it. She was saying, well, there's nothing other than the impermanent. The whole teaching of Buddhism, not the whole teaching, but a big part of it is, about the illusion. Everything's impermanent. They call it anicca. Everything's anicca. So she said, there's nothing else than the impermanence. And I was like, well, actually, kind of missing the point there, because beyond the impermanent, there's what we call God, which is just an awareness of what's eternal and that doesn't change. And then she got a bit defensive. Well, I know that I exist, and but I could tell she didn't really get it. She hadn't really dropped into that self-knowledge, the higher self. So she's meditating, she's doing hours and hours and hours, but without this kind of teaching, I think it's very easy to not get it. It's like she's just meditating and say, well, just meditate and, this is going to work. But they're not really explaining why and, what the context of it is and the whole picture. And so, this course is a course in mind training. It's really giving you a very clear picture of what's happening.
Well,
how the soul system works.
And some people get there through meditation. I mean, look at this French Buddhist Mathieu Ricard, who's been living in Tibet, meditating for years and years and years, and he's got the title of being the happiest man in the world now, and he's written books, and I think he's enlightened, or he's happy. He's reached that transcendence. Otherwise, he wouldn't be.
I'm not saying it can't work. I think it can.
You're saying that it's better to have this mind training.
Well, Yeshua's telling us, he says, these means he said at some points in the text that you could meditate for years, and in the end, because of your purpose, it will succeed. But he said these means are tedious. This is a bit tedious, and what he's giving us is a quicker way, the fast track.
Mm.
And he talked about the holy relationship, particularly in that context.
Yeah.
So a quicker way is to live your life, and just as these things arise, you get challenged, particularly in relationships. You get challenged by the ego, and it comes in, and then you apply this teaching, you forgive, and you let it go, because then you're undoing a huge block to the awareness of love's present through this forgiveness process, and just living your life in this sort of aware way, just in the state of awareness and forgiving as a result of it. That's what he's saying is the quickest way. So he's not saying don't meditate, but he's saying you don't need to spend hours and hours and hours in meditation. Otherwise, he would have given us that. It would have been a course just in meditation.
Yeah.
But he's saying, no, okay, you're going to do some practice every day. He's only asking us for maybe 10 minutes initially, not even. It's very short mind training lessons. And then as we get more,
you mean 10 minutes meditation, or in 10 minutes?
Well, he asked for, as we get further into the workbook, he asked for, we'll do a 10-minute period or do a 15-minute period.
Oh, yeah.
A practice period. So that's a meditation. He's saying, okay, we'll just contemplate this for 10 or 15 minutes, maybe twice a day. And then in between, you're going to do these, these short top-ups, which I call breath breaks, which we just incorporate some breath work and so he's saying it's not necessary to do hours and hours and hours of, sitting in meditation. Otherwise, he would have given it to us. He's saying this is, with this kind of mind training, you can save yourself, a lot of that, a lot of that time and pain. I mean, the Vipassana is just about pain.
That's true.
Saying, no, it's the hardest.
Pain of sitting for hours.
He was going, it's the hardest, and almost proudly, no, Vipassana is the hardest meditation in the world. Like, well, we're the hardcore. And so you got to sit for 12 hours and kind of suck it up and take it. And it's interesting because the Buddha was actually realized that there's those kinds of methods. They're really like hardcore. He did all of it, nearly to death, literally. Took him, close to death. These ascetic practices, because he was starving himself and doing all kinds of different meditation practices, and really just like going for it. But he realized that it wasn't working, that he wasn't getting there. The harder he tried, the more kind of stuck he got. He was seeking enlightenment, but he wasn't enlightened. And the more he wanted it, the more it was elusive. And eventually, his body was about to expire. And I think he just gave up. It was kind of okay, I'm just kind of gonna give up on this and surrender, like all of this effort. And then when he gave up and he let go of all the efforting and the striving, then he came to his enlightenment, and he woke up and he was like, actually, I'm never going to find it by desiring. So I can desire and meditate all I like, but I'm desiring and I'm seeking, and I'm never going to find it, because my seeking then blocks it, the awareness from it, you see. And it was when he finally just gave up after all of that effort that it came to him. And then he taught what's called the middle way. So he said, these ascetic practices are not going to work, and neither is overindulging in sense pleasures. Neither of those extremes is going to work. It's kind of a middle way where it's, more moderate, more balanced, and you're going to meditate. But he wouldn't have, I'm not sure he would have agreed with go for, 12 days, 12 hours a day, go through I'm not sure he would have actually said, yes, that's a good idea, because the middle way sort of was a way of moderation. So I think that's, again, the ego comes in, hijacks these paths, and they've gone sort of back into a lot of that striving, efforting, which existed when the Buddha was around. He looked at that and he tried it, and he said, this isn't really working. And so I'm going to give another way, better way, that is going to work. But it's interesting how the ego goes back into, okay, well, more is better. So if the more meditation we do, if we do 12 hours a day and we do a 60-day retreat, then it's got to be better, But is it really? That's the question. Or you're just doing more of the same thing and you're kind of at a dead end. I did see that with that woman. I'm not saying everyone in Vipassana is like that, but it was almost like, right, we're just doing the practice for the practice's sake. I said to her, so is there a danger of this practice becoming an attachment? She didn't like that question. So, oh, no, not at all. I was like, really? Because if you're honest, maybe the practice becomes another attachment, doesn't it? Oh, well, I've got to just keep practicing. And that's actually becomes a hindrance to your awakening.
Because you actually can get addicted to it. Like, yeah. Because there's such a big gap when you come out. I remember when I came out of that 12 days or 12 days meditation, you go back out into the world and you're like, there's such a big, like it feels like a big disconnect or gap, and like something is missing in the world. Like you kind of get lost, actually. You kind of lost because there's not really, I don't know. I don't know.
They don't really give you a way to live in the world. It's like, okay, well, you're going to carry on meditating 2 hours a day, but how do you perceive this world?
Exactly. Exactly.
And so this thought system,
something's missing.
Something's missing, exactly. Because remember where the Buddha came from. He's talking about pure formless awareness, nirvana. So let's bring up this diagram, Holy Trinity. He was talking about this, right? He called this nirvana, this state of pure formless awareness, where there's just awareness and nothing else. It's in perfect peace. And then he taught there's no self, right? So there's no self. In nirvana, there's just this pure awareness. That's all there is. But then there's, how do you bridge that? How do you now operate in the world?
That's what's missing.
Go, okay, well, I've still got to kind of function here because life goes on. I'm going to have these experiences in time and space. Not everyone is going to be, on my plane. So I have to deal with egos and I have to deal with some of the difficulties of time space. Now, how do I perceive all of that correctly if I'm no self? If I'm just checked out and I'm in pure formless awareness in nirvana, how does that work? And I think that's where Buddhism lacks a bit. It just doesn't quite make a bridge between the two. So in a 10-day Vipassana, you can go and you can check out and you can go into this and you can experience it. And I did. It was amazing. At a moment of like revelation. But then you've got to come back into the world and you've got to live in the world. You've got to integrate and you've got to still be sort of functional. You don't want to be some kind of vegetable or zombie that just can't function in the world. You're so checked out, you're just on cloud nine and you can't, pay your bills. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
What Yeshua is giving us is really a thought system. It's an operating system that will allow us to be in the world, but not of the world. So this Christ, this idea of the true self, which Buddhism doesn't really have, because it just talks about no self, the doctrine of no self, anatta. It doesn't really, have a self to replace the ego. So in my view, that's a huge gap. Like how do you bridge?
There's a massive gap.
From there?
We're missing the Holy Spirit,
without a true self, the Christ, and then the Holy Spirit, which is the reinterpreter that can say, okay, well, from the perspective of the Christ, which is one self, your true self, there's only recognizing there's only really one of us here, one self. That allows you to operate in this world. You've now got a thought system that can perceive correctly, and you can interpret the people, places, things, events, circumstances of this world from this perspective and get a true perspective, a true interpretation or perception of it, which then corrects your mind. You identify more and more with this, the Christ, the one self. And the more you identify with this, the stronger your connection becomes to this awareness, because underlying the Christ self is this awareness, you see.
Yeah. So I remember
it's like a bridge.
Spaced out, like you said, like totally spaced out when you come out of this.
It's a bit, I managed quite okay. But the reason why I think I managed quite well was I just kind of went back into practicing the course. I was like, okay, well, I've done that and I've done the 10 days and I did what they asked me to. I suspended my my course practice for that 10 days. And I just went, okay, I'll just do this. And then, but like I came back to it and I was like, no, actually, you need some thought training, you need some mind training. You can't just go into pure formless awareness and observe. Well, how, now you've got to come back into your life and you've got to interact. And so the mind training that he's giving us is doing this, is helping us to perceive correctly. And then there's a bridge, from here, you go into the Christ self and you realize I'm one self. I'm still able to function here and perceive. The Christ can still perceive this world of duality, but it perceives it from the perspective of oneness. So it's the intermediary and it's the bridge. Christ and Christ's vision, which is the Holy Spirit, are, I think, very necessary. Otherwise, how are you going to do this? How are you going to go from this world filled with all the duality of time and space to pure formless awareness?
Exactly. That's where it was missing the bridge.
How's that actually going to work?
Yeah.
Unless, the Eastern way, remember, was always to just check out. They went, okay, you're just going to check out of the world and you're going to just meditate kind of 24/7 and, you'll get there eventually. So it was a path of renouncing the world and just, staying as much in meditation as possible. But in a Western context, that's not going to work that well. Like, how do you, if you start to meditate 12 hours a day, how do you function? Your life just, everything's meditation. You can't really, work, you can't interact with people. There's no social life. There's no, none of that. It's just meditation. So why they do it in the retreats. It's like, okay, well, you're just going to focus on this. But sustainably, you need to be able to, perceive the world correctly and still function in your life. So, I think this is a really great thought system that he's giving us. It's an operating system that he's saying, look, this is the quickest way out. That this will help you to bridge the gap. It's going to help you to, have a happy dream while you're here, because he doesn't want us all just committing suicide and leaving. It's like, no, you can stay here for a while and it's okay. And you just reinterpret everything. And now you will be done through by the Spirit. The Spirit's coming through the Christ, the pure formless awareness, the Spirit coming through the Christ, the one self, and then changing your perception via the Holy Spirit. And you can have a happy dream. You can be quite peaceful. You can be happy while you're correcting your mind and preparing your mind for the final, letting go into this state of awareness. When God takes the final step, he says, and you just merge back into that awareness, and there's no longer any need for Christ or the Holy Spirit, because there's no perception there. Christ and the Holy Spirit are only needed in a world of duality where perception seems to be still there. So it's a thought system that I haven't seen anywhere else. In other spiritual teachings, they have, this Advaita Buddhism, they're pointing to this. But then how do you get there? Because that's really what's key. How do you get from this state of separation and bridge the gap and get into pure formless awareness of perfect love? And that's really the question. So you can teach this till the cows come. You say, well, there's just pure formless awareness of perfect love. And, okay, but teacher, I'm still stuck in perception. I've still got this stuff going on in my life. I've got perceptions, I've got issues, I've got problems. How do I apply this? How do I do this? And these other teachings, I think they fall short, because there's no bridge. There's not enough of a bridge. It's too much of a gap between pure formless awareness of perfect love and this dualistic world. And this system is bridging the gap quite nicely, and giving us a way of being in the world but not of the world, of reinterpreting the world in a way that isn't going to keep us here. So we're not going to get stuck here by doing this. It's going to facilitate our awakening. It's going to be the quickest way that we can actually get out and emerge our minds back into pure formless awareness of perfect love. In time. It's not going to happen overnight. And so, we'll have this thought system to serve us well while we're here. And then, when you're ready to lay the body aside, you do, and you just merge back into this awareness, and this whole game is over. There's no need for Christ or the Holy Spirit. anymore because there's just pure formless awareness of perfect love. Heaven, the Buddha would call nirvana. It's the same thing. Just that awareness and nothing else. But it's a journey to get there. And I think this course has mapped that out and saying very clearly, this is how you do it. So is that helpful? Is that clear to everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very clear and very valuable.
And now you understand the Holy Trinity, you see? Because most Christians have no idea what the Holy Trinity really is and what it means. And neither do Christian theologians. I've seen all kinds of explanations, like they don't make sense. They only make sense if you understand that it's an operating system. So within the framework of the duality of the world, then Christ and the Holy Spirit seem to exist, but they don't absolutely exist. Because in the end, only God exists. Only pure formless oneness of perfect love absolutely exists. But in relative existence, they seem to, and they're helpful in awakening us. So they're the only illusions that don't make more illusions. See, they take us out of the illusion. Forgiveness is an illusion, but it's the one illusion that doesn't perpetuate, that doesn't make more illusions. So that's very helpful to know. And if anyone wants you to explain the Holy Spirit, Holy Trinity, now you can. You can say it's pure formless awareness of perfect love, that's source, and then you have a true self, which is the intermediary, it's the bridge between source and this world, and then the perception of that self, the way that self reinterprets the world from a perspective of perfect oneness and reinterprets situations in time and space is the Holy Spirit, that reinterpretation. So then Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and you have an operating system now that you can actually function very effectively within this world. Okay? So, shall we move on to number 3? Who would like to read that, Elaine?
Yes. Any thought system that confuses God and the body must be insane. Any thought system that confuses pure formless awareness of perfect love and the body must be insane. Just continue in the alternative.
Yeah, for this one, number 2 should work, and then number 3 there'll be some translation. So go back up there.
Yeah. Yet this confusion is essential to the separate self, which judges only terms of threat or non-threat to itself. And then at the top, yeah. On to number 3.
In one sense, yeah.
And in one sense, the ego's fear of God is at least logic, since the idea of him does dispel the ego. In one sense, the separate self's fear of pure formless awareness of perfect love is at least logical, since the idea of him does dispel. Oops, there's a bit more, and I can't see the. Yeah, there it is. The separate self.
Yeah, we should make this belief in separation. This idea of him being it, idea of it, does dispel the belief in separation. Okay, so it's logical, but because that would have resistance to
right. So
would have fear of perfect love, fear of perfect love. It's at least logical because it dispels it.
Yeah.
But fear of the body, with which the ego identifies so closely, makes no sense at all.
So, but fear of the body with which the separate self identifies so closely makes no sense at all.
Yeah, because it doesn't. If it identifies so closely with it, how can you fear it?
True.
If this is your chosen home, and the separate self says, "Okay, I'm a body." That's what really confirms the separation, doesn't it? The separate identity is confirmed by the seemingly separate body in which this mind seems to dwell.
Yeah.
Saying it, it makes no sense at all.
Mm. Yeah, it's a nice short one.
Nice short one, yeah. So let's crack on with this. So pure personalized summary. Any thought system that confuses pure formless ones of perfect love, the body must be insane. Okay. Yet this confusion is essential to my separate self, which judges only in terms of threat or non-threat to itself. Judges only in terms of threat or non-threat to itself. That's okay. My separate self's fear of perfect love is logical. This idea of it does dispel my belief in separation, but fear of the body for which my separate self identifies so much makes no sense at all. Okay, just want to read that from the top.
Yeah, any thought system that confuses pure formless awareness of perfect love and the body must be insane. Yet this confusion is essential to my separate self, which judges only in terms of threat or non-threat to itself. My separate self's fear of perfect love is logic, since the idea of it does dispel my belief in separation. But fear of the body, with which my separate self identifies so much, makes no sense at all.
I'll personalize that, but my fear of the body. Yeah, so pretty simple what he's saying there. Summarize that in words. What's he saying?
Well, the thought system that confuses the pure formless awareness with the body, is insane, and the fear of the body with which my separate self identifies so much makes no sense at all. It's not logical. My separate self's fear of perfect love is logical. Yeah. Yeah,
it does dispel my belief in separation.
Yeah.
And the body with which my separate self identifies. So no sense at all to deny the body, because it's identified with it. Said I'm a body. That's how it maintains the separation. Okay, so number 4. Body is the ego's home by its own election. So will you read, Aurelie?
Yeah. So what I was looking at, the word dispel. Dispel means wait, I was trying to understand this word dispel.
Spell, yeah. Does dispel. So it undoes, removes, makes it disappear. Dispel, so spell is like a spell, a spell put upon someone, and then you dispel it. So the ego's got this magic spells, and then you dispel the spells. You undo the spells. So it undoes. You can't use undoes because we've got does. Since the idea of it does dispel, undoes the belief in separation. Removes the belief in separation.
I'm trying to understand the sentence, like the word within the sentence, or within the context, or within the sentence.
It does dispel. So it.
The separate self sphere of perfect love is at least logical, since the idea of it does dispel. So that is it make disappear the belief.
Cause the belief in separation to disappear, as another way of saying it. That's sort of what dispel means. Is that clearer?
Cause the belief in separation to disappear. But who is doing that? The perfect love, or is it the separate self? That's where.
Yeah, perfect love. It's the idea of it. So the idea of perfect love in the mind, come into the mind and accept it. I am perfect love. I am love. You all did it yesterday. Does cause the belief in separation to disappear. Doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, but I wasn't sure because of the way the sentence is formulated.
Yeah. I mean, it's secular language, so I get it. So it does cause the belief. Shall we phrase it as does cause the belief in separation to disappear?
No, that's good like this. I get it now. I get this now. I mean, now that you've explained this,
Okay, well, we'll keep dispel. We'll keep, because that's what dispel means. Cause the belief to disappear.
Okay.
Feel the body. Yeah.
And number 4 was that wasn't from the summary. Cause
my belief in separation to disappear. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Number 4.
Okay, so the body is the separate self's home by its own election. It is the only identification with which the separate self feels safe, since the body's vulnerability is its own best argument that you cannot be of pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Okay, so the originals were by its own election.
The same.
Body is the separate self's home. The separate self is the only identification with which the separate self feels safe, since the body is vulnerability and best argument that you cannot be of God. Be of perfect love. Okay. So this is the belief. Is that clear? Since the body's vulnerability is its own best argument. If you're vulnerable, you can be hurt, then this is a really good argument for separation.
Yeah. This is the belief that the separate self sponsors eagerly. It's a belief that the ego sponsors eagerly. Yet the separate self hates the body because it cannot accept it as good enough to be its home. Here is where the mind becomes actually dazed. So dazed, what's that word again? Dazed?
Confused. Translate that as confused.
Here is where the mind becomes actually confused, because
very confused.
Okay. Being told by the separate self that it is really part of the body and that the body is its protector, the mind is also told that the body cannot protect it. Therefore, the mind asks, where can I go for protection? To which the separate self replies, turn to me. The mind, and not without cause, reminds the separate self that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body. So there is no point in turning to it for protection.
Yeah, you get what he's saying.
The mind, and not without cause, reminds the separate self that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body. So there's no point in turning to it for protection. No, I don't get this one. This sentence. It's very difficult to get for me. This one.
So the mind. This is your mind that is able to have some awareness. The mind's a separate self. So this is another part of the mind. So you could say this is the Holy Spirit, actually. Maybe we'll translate it as such.
Okay.
Reminds the separate self that it has itself insisted that is identified with the body. So there's no point in turning to it for protection. So I'm identified with the body. I think I'm a body. And then it says, well, I'll save you from this.
But who said that? The ego.
The ego, yeah. Being told by the separate self that it is really part of the body, that the body is its protector.
But it's
the mind
not.
Is also told.
It's not actually. It's the mind who is protecting, right?
Yeah. So the ego belief raises the body to predominance. It says the body is what you are, and focus on the body and form, and that the mind is really part of the body. The idea that we're a brain, like in the modern consciousness research, they say you're a brain, and you exist in the brain. Your mind comes from brain function.
Yes.
And without the brain, there's no mind. Okay? So you exist in the body. The body is actually your home. And now there's seemingly a mind, but actually the mind is just a function of brain function. You only exist because of your brain. And when you die and the brain is gone, then that's it. It's game over. Which is clearly not the case, because people have had near-death experiences and their brain has died. There's no activity in the brain, and then they have this whole experience.
They come back.
And there's clearly some experience outside of the brain.
Yeah.
And you can go, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, all of astral travel. All this kind of indicates that there's a mind that's outside of the body. I've met someone who's had a out-of-body experience where he said I was out of my body and I could see my body in the corner. I was in the corner of the room and there's my body lying on the bed, and he could see himself. And he's like, "Whoa, what's happened?" I'm not in my body anymore.
I also had this experience, actually this strange experience once when I did a very powerful gong meditation. I was the crystal balls actually and the gong meditation. And it took me in the cosmos. It was really strange experience. And I've only experienced this once. And I did it several times, but I never got back to that experience. I used to do that in Cape Town, this amazing gong meditation, and it's crystal balls and gong playing. But it's so, it takes you deep
out of the body into something else.
It was something else there, definitely something else.
So the ego is telling you that you identify with the body.
Yeah.
And then the mind, so maybe we say the
Holy Spirit,
the right mind.
Oh yeah, the right mind, yeah. And
not without cause,
reminds the separate self that it has itself insisted that it's just the way that sentence is done, it's a bit confusing. That it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body.
Yeah.
So there's no point in turning to it for protection. So who do they refer to it? Who do they refer to it?
That it is identified with the body. So there's no point in turning to it for protection, referring to the separate self.
Okay.
the separate self.
Yeah.
Because the separate self, it says, right, you're actually part of the body. You know, the body is actually your home. You're identified with this. You know, it's the extreme of it. You have no mind. Your any consciousness that you have is a product of brain function. So, like, the body is your home. Don't forget it. And so the right mind says, well, you know, you're telling me you can protect me from all the, you know, issues that the body clearly has. The body's going to age, it's going to die. You're telling me to turn to you, but actually you've just said that you're part of the body. You're identified with the body. So what's the point in turning to you? Because you clearly can't protect me, because you're identified with this thing that's very fragile and vulnerable, can be hurt and can suffer and can die. So how can you say you can protect me from this?
Yeah. Okay, so if I read the next sentence, I think it makes sense. The separate self has no real answer to this because there is none, but it does have a typical solution. It obliterates the question from the mind's awareness. And once out of awareness, the question can and does produce uneasiness, but it cannot be answered because it cannot be asked.
So just obliterate it from your awareness, which is the ego is quite good at doing. Just blanket, think about something else, distract you, get you to focus on something else. People might say, you know, it's all this stuff, it's just too complicated. I don't even want to go there. Just let me watch some TV or go to a movie or.
Yeah, I can see how I've been so distracted as well. Yeah.
So then it just pushes it out of awareness. So you don't really ponder these questions. Okay, so like, actually, does that make any sense? Because if you ponder these things,
I mean, in the past, before I started the course, I used to be so distracted. But since I started the course, I haven't been so distracted. I've been very focused on the course actually, and doing all the practice and stuff. But before that, I'm aware of how I was easily distracted. Yeah.
And that's what the ego does. It's like, we'll just obliterate the question, and it gets you to focus on you know, body things, body sensations, pleasures, comforts. You know, what can I do next? Oh, I'll watch some TV. I'll go out for a meal. You know, find a boyfriend or girlfriend because that's nice. Have some sex, and so on. You know, anything to obliterate the question out of awareness and go, well, actually, there's a real problem with this whole body identification. Because the body is going to get old, it's going to die. All age, suffering, and death are kind of inevitable, and there doesn't seem to be any hope within the body, within the thought system. You know, that's inevitable, isn't it? So we're all going that way. So, you know, the ego says, well, just don't worry about it. Just you know, eat, drink, make merry, get as much pleasure as you can, live for today, and don't worry about these metaphysical questions. It's obliterated out of your awareness, but that's not going to answer the question. You need to really, you know, look at it, which is what he's getting us to do through this text, and go, okay, that doesn't really make sense at all. There's clearly a, you know, paradox in there, and the ego can't answer it. So maybe I shouldn't look to the ego to answer it, because it can't answer it. I need to look elsewhere, to my right mind, or Christ's mind.
Yeah.
It has Christ's vision, or the Holy Spirit that's able to perceive this correctly, and just go, well, actually, it's all, the ego is just an illusion. The whole separate self, the belief in the body, you don't believe any of it. It's all false. That's the right mind's interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's summarize this.
So my body is the separate self's home by its own election.
Election. Should we change election to choice?
Yeah.
Maybe by its
My body is my separate self's home by its own choice. Yeah. My body is my separate self's home by its own choice.
Maybe we want to say by my own choice. What do you think?
It's weird. I feel like I resonate more with the word ego than separate self. Like it's more for the understanding of it. Like I feel like, I mean, that's personal. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. So you got the original. You can read.
Yeah. Yeah. So my body is my separate self's home by my own choice. It is the identification which separate self will save.
Okay. So this is the only. How about the only home in which my separate self feels safe?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Since the body's vulnerability is its own best argument, you can be. In which, no, in which, no? In which, not with.
Right. Only home in which my separate self feels safe. Since my body's vulnerability is its own best argument that I cannot be
I think it's long, this sentence. I would actually take out since my body's vulnerability is its own best argument.
Yeah. So you would take this out.
Yeah.
Then how does this sentence make sense?
No, the whole, I would take out the whole.
The whole sentence?
No, just that, yeah, just the end bit. Just since my body's vulnerability is its own best argument that my source cannot be of perfect love.
Okay. So how would you make sense of the sentence then? What do you want to take out?
I will just put a period, like a period. This is the only home in which my separate self feels safe, period.
Okay. All right. Full stop. And then how do you connect it to the next sentence? You have to say, this is because my body's vulnerability. Say something like, this is because. But I'm not sure about that. I think since sort of flows better. Since my body's vulnerability is its own best argument, my source cannot be
okay.
Perfect love.
Be perfect love. Okay. This is the belief that my separate self sponsors eagerly. My separate self hates my body because it can't accept.
Sponsors eagerly, must. How about must believe?
This is the belief that my separate self must believe or believes.
Belief in my separate self Well, the idea is it has to believe it, because if it doesn't believe it, then
What was the origin?
it's a belief that the separate self sponsors eagerly.
Okay.
Sponsors eagerly, yeah, okay. Sponsors.
Or supports.
Well, believes, yeah.
That's up,
Separate self
above.
believes. Yeah. Separate self must believe. Yet my separate self hates the body because it cannot accept it as good enough to be its home. And you said you'd had an experience where you did the mirror exercise and you saw that.
What?
It was a self. Well, you experienced that, didn't you? In the exercise you did.
Yeah, I did twice actually. I did twice. I need to do it again to see after we did the flop to see. But I mean, the second time already, I could see the difference. Like already,
Yeah.
it was already flipped before the flop.
Yeah. So this is where my mind becomes very confused. Okay. So the ego is telling us, separate self telling us, you're your body. You're a body, and therefore you're not perfect love. You're not pure formless source of perfect love because you're body. And the separate self must believe that in order to maintain separation. But it also hates the body because it cannot accept it as good enough to be its home. Because it's weak, it's vulnerable, can get get hurt easily, get sick.
This is where my mind becomes very confused. Being told by my separate self that it is really part of my body. And that my body is its protector. My mind is also told that the body cannot protect it. Therefore, my mind asks, where can I go for protection? It's a bit. Therefore, my mind asks, where can I go for protection?
My right mind. Yeah?
My right mind asks, where can I go for protection? To which my separate self replies, turn to me. We should do a play with this whole text. I was just imagining a play.
Yeah, well, Susie was saying that earlier. Said,
really?
Yeah, she was saying we could do a comedy show. For,
absolutely.
Play a role play and act it out. And
yeah, I would be happy to to play this.
Yeah,
it's so funny. It is
really, kind of funny.
This is real comedy show. Yeah, this is real comedy stuff.
Yeah. Could be good.
My right mind and not without cause.
Does this highlight the insanity of the ego? It's like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. You could have a whole argument.
It's funny because that Voice the Love is actually a TV show. It's funny enough. It's like a TV channel.
Really? Okay.
That's what it was created to be originally. The TV.
Right. Okay.
So turn to me. It's interesting how these things are unfolding. We'll see how these ideas unfold. My right mind, and not without cause, reminds my separate self that it has itself insisted that it is.
Take up and not without cause. My right mind.
Oh yeah, correct me.
Quite rightly. Quite rightly reminds.
Correctly. Quite rightly or correctly?
Yeah, my right mind quite rightly. Okay, correctly.
Yeah, correctly is good too.
Correctly is good, yeah.
Correctly reminds my separate self that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body. That would be funny to bring Elaine's element, Elaine comedy with all our insects and all the visitors she's having.
Yeah. Oh,
she's dropped the call. She's left.
She's dropped, yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it. And my right mind correctly reminds my separate self that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body. So there's no point in turning to it for protection.
Maybe in a cartoon, actually, I was thinking more like a cartoon, virtual, like those cartoon characters.
Yeah, could be good actually. Could be a lot of teaching in doing something like that.
Yeah.
Make it funny. So my separate self has no real answer to this because there is none.
But it does have a typical solution. It obliterates the question from my mind's awareness. Once out of awareness, the question can and does produce uneasiness, but it cannot be answered because it cannot be asked.
Okay, so read it from the top.
It's quite a long paragraph, this one. My body is my separate self's home by my own choice. This is the only home in which my separate self feels safe, since my body's vulnerability is its own best argument that my source cannot be perfect love. That this is the belief that my separate self must believe.
Yeah.
Yet my separate self hates the body because it cannot accept it as good enough to be its home.
How about we just say this is what my
because I don't like the belief.
Belief to believe. Oh. It is true. You believe a belief that
but
must believe.
How did they call this I can't remember how they call this sentence, this grammar structure. There's a name for it. Yeah, this is what my separate self must believe. Yeah, that's good like that. So yet my separate self hates the body because it cannot accept it as good enough to be its home. Yeah. This is where my mind becomes very confused, being told by my separate self that it is really part of my body and that my body is its protector. My mind is also told. So we could put a period here by its protector, no?
No, because
it's the same sentence. Yeah.
Being told, this is the precursor to the rest of the sentence. It wouldn't make sense on time.
Yeah. My mind is also told that the body cannot protect it. Also told that the body. My mind is also told that the body cannot protect it. Therefore, my right mind asks, where can I go for protection? To which my separate self replies, turn to me. My right mind correctly reminds my separate self that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body. So there's no point in turning to it for protection. My separate self has no real answer to this because there is none. But it does have a typical solution. It obliterates the question from my mind's awareness. Once out of awareness, the question can and does make me uneasy, but it cannot be answered because it cannot be asked.
So ingenious solution. Ego says, okay, I can't answer that, so I'll just make you unaware of the question.
Yeah.
Distract you, anything not to ask and answer that question. And so an untrained mind, it's easily distractible. If ever it kind of comes across this and there's this kind of vague uneasiness, then it won't go there. It will just go, oh, well, whatever. Just push that feeling down, go do something else, focus on, go see. So
smart ego, very smart ego.
Just obliterates it from awareness so that you don't really sit with that question and ponder it. Because if you really sit with the question and you really ask for an answer, then you get it. And then there's, the undoing of the ego.
Yeah. We're ready, willing to do anything to stay alive, this ego.
So it's very cunning and devious, but just sitting and reflecting, can lead to a breakthrough. Like, so Martin Luther, I talked about him the other day. He had this a question in his mind. He couldn't get his mind around the idea that we are saved by grace. There's a passage in the Bible that says, by grace we're saved. And because of the program in the church and Christian teaching and stuff, Catholic church, this particular line, by grace, not by works, something like that. I think you sent that to your mum.
My mother-in-law,
we're saved by grace, for it is by grace that you have been saved through faith, and that is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. And he just couldn't wrap his head around that. He couldn't get his mind around it. So he sat, in contemplation of this single verse for the entire night. And just like, right, I'm just going to contemplate this, and I'm just going to, pray on it, meditate on it. And eventually he broke through, and he realized it was kind of an experience that came through, that he got it. It was like, okay, I get it. There's nothing I can really do of myself that's going to save me. It's by the grace of, he projected it to Jesus and said, by Jesus Christ, coming from God through Jesus Christ, we are saved. But he really felt that there was obviously some kind of an awakening of his heart, and he felt the love, and that transformed, him. And then he went out and taught this message into the world, and that's what kicked off the whole Reformation of Europe.
Who are you talking about?
Martin Luther.
Oh,
so he was the guy who was the catalyst for the Reformation of Europe. The whole, you probably know about the Reformation. It was the split between the Catholic and the Protestant church. Protestant churches said, no, we don't buy this whole sin, guilt, fear program, and that you're trying to get tithes out of this, that you want indulgences. You want us to pay and buy our way into heaven. And that's totally not, what the truth is. And Martin Luther kicked off that whole movement.
You talk about Martin Luther King Jr.?
No, Martin Luther. There's a guy called Martin Luther.
Oh, okay.
He lived in the 1500s. He was a German priest.
Okay.
And he kicked off the whole Reformation of Europe. So there was a huge, social upheaval, and the Catholic Church's power was seriously questioned and in the end overthrown. That laid the groundwork for the whole Renaissance, and then coming from that, the Industrial Age, and so that was really seminal. His awareness of this absolutely kicked off a process of transformation throughout Europe, and then that rippled obviously through to America and to the East as well, because Europe was really the kind of center of the world at that point. So it just shows you the power of contemplation. If you're just willing, he questioned it. It's like, okay, I'm just willing to sit with this and find a way. And the ego, couldn't, because he was willing to sit with it in focused contemplation for a long time, he broke through and he found the way, and the experience came. He didn't just give up and go, okay, well, I'm just going to forget it. And I'm going to go down to the pub and get sloshed, or I'm going to do something else. He just was willing to sit with the discomfort of it, because it's sin and guilt program. He found it really difficult to deal with that sin and guilt. So he had to sit and he had to go through the discomfort and question it. And then there was a moment of enlightenment. Satori came through, and that kicked off profound transformation in Europe and in the world. You know, if he hadn't had that breakthrough insight, he probably wouldn't have done what he did. So,
yeah, that's what I'm
just shows
hoping to have, this breakthrough or insight for the guidance for the next step to take.
The
next step.
Yeah, well,
Like
it'll
the
come.
praying mantis. Always wait and meditate until you're ready to take your next step. What they say about the praying mantis.
Yeah, it'll come. Okay, so what is he what is he saying here? Did you read this from the top, by the way?
I don't know. We got
read it from the
distracted
top.
talking about the grace, I think.
Yeah. My body is my separate self's
My
home.
body is my oh yeah, I think I did actually read.
I think you did,
It
yeah.
feels like I've read it already. Yeah, I did actually. I read the whole thing already.
Yeah. So what's he saying here in summary?
Well, obviously the ego wants to control everything, wants to control the body and prevent perfect love awareness to get or the mind actually to direct the body in a way. So the ego or the separate self wants to be in control here and try to block the awareness of the mind, so it doesn't receive, so the body doesn't receive the guidance from the mind.
Yeah, just obliterate the question rather than questioning and saying this doesn't make sense. You see, the ego doesn't want to be exposed. This doesn't make sense, so then it just obliterates the question.
Yeah, so it hides the
question.
Hides the question.
Because the question would expose it, and it doesn't want to be exposed.
Yeah.
So, all right. So happy with number 4. So number 5, 2 more to go.
Oh my God! Really?
Well, it's not too bad. 2.
Yeah. Really.
Okay. So this is the question that must be asked.
This is the question that must be asked. Where can I go for protection? Seek and you shall find. Does not mean that you should seek blindly and desperately for something you would not recognize. Meaningful seeking is consciously undertaken. Consciously organized and consciously directed. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. Meditating to get that guidance.
Meaningful seeking. So that's exactly what we're doing with this whole program.
Yeah.
The meaningful seeking of true answers, consciously undertaken, is organized, it's directed. You know, so there's some structure, there's some organization, there's a level of self-discipline.
Yeah.
So that you can wake up.
Yeah. And the goal must be formulated clearly and kept in mind. Learning and wanting to learn are inseparable. You learn best when you believe what you're trying to learn is of value to you. That's so true. However, not everything you may want to learn has lasting value. Indeed, many of the things you want to learn may be chosen because their value will not last.
Yeah.
I think I read this last night as well. I was in the flow. I was reading the 3 sections, like from the love versus conflict until this part. Until this section, whole section.
So the question that must be asked: where can I go for protection? So interesting. In the Vipassana, they talk about refuge. I seek a refuge in Buddha. Seek refuge in Dhamma, it's the truth. I seek refuge in Buddha, and I seek refuge in Sangha.
Yeah, For me,
where can I
see
go?
it more as a it's purification of your mind. So it purifies your mind and your body through the process because you're aware of everything that's happening, observing sensations and thoughts. And yeah, you basically, but it doesn't really tell you how to release emotions, really. It's your own process. And the
Yeah, well, you just
obviously
observe
they
them,
teach
and
you.
you don't.
They teach you the technique, but.
But interesting in the start, they say, where can I go for protection? Whereas I find protection, I seek refuge.
Oh, yeah.
Protection in Dhamma, truth. So that's ultimate truth. And then I seek refuge in Buddha, which is awakening to the truth. And I seek refuge in Sangha, which is the community, spiritual community. And so, all of those elements are here as part of the art of letting go. The ultimate truth is coming. It's coming from God, pure formless oneness of perfect love. I seek refuge in Buddha, which is the Christ, my true self. And I seek refuge in the spiritual community that's supporting me on the journey. That's going to help me to awaken to my Christ self and ultimately pure formless awareness of perfect love. Okay, so where can I go for protection? You must ask that question. Seek and you shall find. Does not mean that you should
find does not mean that you should seek blindly and desperately for something you would not recognize. Meaningful seeking is consciously undertaken, consciously organized, and consciously directed. So maybe we should say too that we must seek meaningfully. I must seek meaningfully.
Yeah, so this is the question that I must
ask.
Where can I go for protection?
There's a space there, I think I must ask. There's a space between the two words. Where can I go for protections? Seek and you shall find.
It's a quote, so I'll leave it. Seek and you shall find. It does not mean that you should seek blind, that I should seek blindly and desperately for something I would not recognize.
Yeah.
I would not, or I do not recognize.
I must seek meaningfully. Oh no, wait, sorry. No. Meaningful seeking is conscious. I must seek meaningfully. No. My meaningful seeking must be consciously.
Yeah, my meaningful. Yeah, that's good. My meaningful seeking
must be consciously undertaken. Consciously organized and consciously directed.
I'm about to meaningfully seek. Meaningfully seek an answer to this question, because that's really what he's talking about. Yeah? Answer to where can I go for protection? I must consciously undertake, organize, and consciously undertake organize and direct to meaningfully seek an answer to this question. I must consciously undertake, organize, and direct my search.
My goal must be formulated clearly and kept in mind.
So I must, it's active rather than passive. I must
formulate my goal,
more clearly,
and keep it in mind.
keep it in mind. Learning and wanting to learn are inseparable. I learn best when I believe
What I am trying to learn is of value to me. However, not everything I may want to learn has lasting value. I would say, and
yeah,
many of the things I want to learn may be chosen.
because their value will not last.
Because their value will not be.
Yeah. So, lots of things we can choose to learn all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
New skills, we do degrees. The lady I did a coaching session earlier. She's like, well, her ex-partner was like, well, I'm so superior to you because I've got a degree. I've got 2 degrees, in fact. But that value, degrees and formal education is not going to last.
It's funny you say that, because today I was like, I came across a free class or something to get to do I think to be a meditation teacher that Deepak Chopra was offering, like this free class he's trying to get to train basically meditation teacher. And I was thinking about this. I was like, but why would I believe that I'm not worthy of teaching meditation without that certificate or without that thing? I'm already doing meditation, but there was a part of me that was wondering, what it was like, kind of attracting the offer that he was doing, but at the other side of me was saying, but I already know this. I've already meditated, I've already taught meditation, so why would I need a paper or certificate or someone else's approval or validation to say I can teach meditation?
Yeah.
So that's what came to me in the guidance. It was interesting.
Well, a lot of the time that's the case. I've always been like, well, there's what happens in the spiritual world is people set up these things, don't they? They set up an organization or something. They say, right, so now we're the official kind of body for this, and you have to come through us, and you have to do the training, and you have to get the certificates, and you have to come through us. And it's just nonsense, because it's like, well, once you know the technique,
exactly,
that it's really not that difficult to practice and to teach.
Exactly.
You don't need some qualification. I think of holotropic breath work, and they've set up this whole thing, and you have to go and you have to do hundreds of hours of training. Like, it's really not a complicated technique. You don't need hundreds of hours. It's just a breathing technique, and I just started doing it, and I'm like, well, it kind of works. And if you're in,
it's the same for this conscious dance training as well. Like they ask you to go and do all these hours, but if you already have the experience of being a facilitator and you've been attending so many dance classes and you know how that goes, and you just trust your creativity and your intuition, and you can go with the flow and actually be a great teacher or facilitator to do that. I mean, I don't like that's. I think what it's showing. It's like throughout all these certification, you kind of look for or seek validation externally. That's what it is.
Yeah, and it's not trusting the Holy Spirit. You're like, oh, well, I need a qualification. But the whole point of the spiritual journey is it's like, well, I just let go, and I trust, and if I need to know something, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Paramahansa
Absolutely.
Yogananda, he didn't know English, so he rocks up in California, told by his guru to go there, and there's a talk, that welcoming talk, and he doesn't speak English, and there's no translator. He's like, okay, well, I don't know, help me, and he just gets spoken through, and apparently this perfect speech in English is given.
Wow.
He has no idea what he's saying, but something's giving it. And everyone's like, wow, it's like, I have no idea what I'm saying, because I don't understand the language, but something's coming in and doing it for me. So it's like the spirit can do it all. You don't need qualifications and all this. It's like a formal, what I've always found is like, it's an attempt to formalize and structure within like an ego framework.
Yeah. I also went to the US not speaking a word of American. I couldn't understand a word of it when I first arrived there, because I learned English from England. And I arrived there and everybody's like, I'm like, what? I can't understand a word. So I had this American slang book, like dictionary and a French English dictionary, and every day I spent translating every I spent hours trying to. That's how I learned. And of course, watching TV, like MTV, the music channel. I was watching this and then reading this dictionary and this book, this slang book, and that's how I learned. So. It's amazing, like when you put your mind or trust into the whatever process, because that was my goal. My goal was to go there for 1 year and come back bilingual, like French English, and that's what I did. I was 19 when I did that. So it was a bit tough experience at first, because I couldn't understand nothing, and I was alone there in that area as an au pair. But yeah. Nelson Mandela, or is there nothing is impossible until it's done.
yeah everything is impossible until it's done.
So
that's
what I say. Nothing is impossible until it's done. I don't know if Mandela says something similar. I think well,
it would make sense to say everything is impossible until it's done.
Yes.
Everything is impossible until it's actually done. I mean, so they're like, oh, okay, well, now it's done. I mean, classic example of that was the 4 minute mile. You know the story of the 4 minute mile.
The what?
Running the 4 minute mile. So in athletics, they believed that it was not possible for a human to break the 4 minute mile barrier, to run faster than 4 minutes per mile.
And they did it.
And this guy called Roger Bannister went, not sure about that. I think it is possible. And so he trained and he did all kinds of mind games, and he broke through. He was like, okay, he was the first one who did it. He went just under 4 minutes in the mile. And then once he'd done it, everyone did it. Like within weeks, everyone was doing it. It was like, okay, well, we can do it now because someone's done it. But it was like a mental, barrier. Somehow
he was the motivator.
Said, well, it's the so-called experts, who weren't usually athletes. So no, we've studied the human body. It's just not possible for them to do because of this and this and this reason. And then there's a whole, block in the belief. And actually now they run the mile in like 3:40. It's like 20 seconds quicker.
I met this amazing woman, actually, Unstoppable Tracy. She's born with no limbs, like no arms, no legs. So she's got prothesis, or how you call it.
Yeah.
And so I met her in England, actually, in the UK, in London. She was doing a talk, inspirational talk conference, and she's sharing her story, how unbelievable. Like she imagine climbing the Himalayas or the mountains without legs, she was basically on her knees, like just her limbs, like knees. Basically she was born like that. And so, I think her how do you say, her length is like up to the knee, basically. And then she's got prothesis, but she did so much. She climbed the Himalayas with no limbs. She did some race, like boat race, as well. What else? Oh, she did so much. I actually have her book. It was so inspirational woman. Like, that's why that's a good name for Unstoppable Tracy. A very inspiring what she did. But when I thought about it after that, like now when I think of her, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe it was her ego as well, being directed by the ego, wanting to, to prove something. In a way.
It's a double-edged, there's two elements to it. There's overcoming limits, which is, is a good thing. The spirit's saying there are no limits, the body's not a limit.
Yeah.
But if you stay on that track, you're trying to overcome physical limits, it's quite limiting. Because the only way you're really going to overcome all limits is to go in the mind.
And she will exhaust her mind doing that. And I think that's what's happened. I'm sure she exhausted her mind wanting to prove something to people. If she can do it, everyone can do it, then the kind of mindset.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, it is a good message. It's inspirational. But you have to be careful there, not to be too much in your ego, not to be in the ego.
Well, it becomes too much about the form. It's about, I did this, I achieved this, I accomplished this, I overcame obstacles, and then aren't I great because I did all of this, and then there's a whole the ego gets puffed up a little bit, and it's I'm now a bigger, better, separate self, and really. Why is she doing it? Is she doing it just to get the kudos, just to puff up her separate self? So that's it's you're on dodgy ground.
It is because you don't get enlightenment from that.
No, she won't get enlightenment. She'll have to go beyond that. It might be part of her journey. It's like, okay, well, I've done that, I've overcome fear, and I've overcome limits, and so I realize I can do it. My mind has power. Okay, well, maybe now, if I set all of that discipline, that self-discipline and that will to something else like, spiritual practice and growth, then there's, the opportunity to make real progress. And I think, this is relevant to this idea of consciously seeking, directing the search. When I was much younger, I was a professional squash player. And I approached it with, some discipline and organization. I was like, okay, so I need to train properly, and I need to, organize my things like diet and breathing. And I did some research. And I was trying to be a bit more intelligent than just the average squash pro. I could actually apply my mind to this. So in all of that, I was really consciously undertaking, organizing, and directing a search.
Yeah.
And I, if you keep searching, it'll lead you in the direction of spirit. There's no other, I didn't know that was actually what I was searching for. I thought I wanted to be the world champion. That was my ego goal. But actually it was taking me in the direction of, this spiritual understanding and awakening. And so, but that experience of structuring, organizing, being quite disciplined, being quite focused, it was all good mind training because it prepared me to take that same kind of mindset into spiritual, the spiritual domains. Okay, well, let me apply the same kind of thinking. I'm going to organize it. I'm going to do meditation. I'm going to go and I'm going to read books, and I'm going to, I had some structure to it. And I was looking for the ultimate way, and I found A Course in Miracles, and then I was like, okay, well, let me read it, cover to cover, and let me do the exercises, as he says, one a day. And so there was a kind of conscious searching and structure and a discipline to it that I think I wouldn't have had if I hadn't had that initial training. In okay, I'm going to train my body primarily, but I was also training my mind. I did visualization, and it's all mind training. All of that is actually my mind. Yeah. And then that prepared me for this kind of this kind of disciplined, detailed work, which a lot of people go, well, how do you sit for hours and do this? It's like, well, because I've had training. It's prepared me.
That's actually kind of why I got into Vipassana, actually, for the discipline, because I felt like I needed more discipline. Actually, yeah. But
so then it allows you
after when you come out, it's hard to keep the discipline of meditating for that long. impossible.
Well, I realized I just, I couldn't afford it. The last couple of years with this program,
Yeah.
I've had to go, well, my spiritual practice is the program. I'm doing hours and hours and hours of it. That's, that's got to
it
be, because
is.
I
You're
just
right.
don't have time.
Yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, it is spiritual practice. So,
it is.
there will come a time when I can meditate more. But at the moment, it's like, right, I'm on the clock. I've got to get up, got to get the stuff out, then into a session. Then, so just haven't had time, but that's okay. I've accepted it. It's like, all right, well, I don't have the time right now. But ultimately, I want to do my own program. So when it's all, built to this level I'm happy with, be like, okay, I'll do it, like, properly. 1 year, I'll be a guinea pig, and I'll really immerse myself in it and do it.
Yes.
You see, yes.
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to put in, what I want to put in place, actually, but I don't know why I've been feeling stuck. The course you're teaching is actually kind of what I've been wanting to teach, actually. Well,
Teaching
I
the course.
started preparing the program, but I think I was lacking the structure, like putting everything together and how to organize and feel the direction or feel guided to do it, like in that spiritual way. So that I know this is what I want to teach, and I want to really feel the guidance towards it, like feel guided, but not being guided by the ego controlling, but guided through spirit all the way. Yeah.
Yeah, well, just I had the same intention, and it just happened. It's unfolded, and I just kept listening and saying, okay, so what's the next step? And here we are. And it's amazing. If I think back to where it started, I mean, when you start, there's nothing. There's no community. There's no one knows about it.
Yeah.
And you've got to build it from scratch. And it's just like, okay, well, just make a start, and then you iterate it.
Well, I did that with Voice the Change, and also Voice the Love, but Voice the Change. I built that community and the Voice the Change.
So you've got I had a platform. I mean, I'd done stuff before, and I'd done workshops and retreats, and there wasn't really a proper community, but I had people who I knew, so I could say, okay, well, wasn't that hard to fill a beta course and say, look, this is what I'm doing. Would you like to join? And they were like, okay, well, based on what you've done, yes, I'm up for it. It's not going to cost anything. Yeah. So it wasn't that difficult to get 10 people or so to do the first beta course. And then, and that's the start. So, that beta course came because I'd done, 15 years prior to that of stuff in this domain. So it's all part of it. It's preparation.
Yeah.
But I like what he's saying. He's saying there's conscious, this needs to be consciously structured, organized. Yeah. There's a bit of discipline. Hey, I know some spiritual people, and there's no discipline. They're supposedly spiritual, but it's actually all over the shop. There's no discipline. They can't focus, and there's no structure, and that's going to limit your progress.
Exactly.
This does require some discipline and structure. You got to practice daily. Do the course lessons, do meditation. It requires a bit of structure and organization. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learn best when I'm trying when I value what I'm trying to learn.
Absolutely. Or what I'm trying to teach as well.
Yeah. You need to be motivated. So did we read this? I don't think so. Do you want to read it from the top? This is the question I must ask.
This is the question that I must ask. Where can I go for protection? Seek and you shall find does not mean that I should seek blindly and desperately. I should seek blindly and desperately for something I do not recognize. To meaningfully seek an answer to this question, I must consciously undertake, organize, and direct my search. I must formulate my goal clearly and keep it in mind. Learning and wanting to learn are inseparable. I learn best when I believe what I am trying to learn is of value to me. However, not everything I may want to learn has lasting value. Indeed, many of the things I want to learn may be chosen because their value will not last.
So many of the things. And I may choose. So I may want to learn is lasting value. Many of the things I want to learn, and I may choose because their value will not last. Okay, so what's he saying there? Yeah, want to summarize that quickly?
Well, I think the main thing is to, like, when you seek an answer to a question, you must actually consciously undertake, organize, and direct your searching with a clear goal, and being willing to learn as well, but learning something that has value. Otherwise, you won't be learning efficiently or learning at all if it doesn't have value to you.
Yeah.
So it needs to have value, whatever you learn.
Yeah.
Whatever you choose to learn.
Yeah, and then you'll be motivated to organize it and structure it. Okay, so the ego thinks it is an advantage.
The ego thinks it is an advantage not to commit itself to anything that is eternal. Oh my God, this is interesting. Because the eternal must come from God. I can see how my ego has resisted that commitment before, but that was after I did a 3 months commitment seminar after the Landmark Education Forum. It was a 3 months commitment, and every single day, like for 3 months, you had to commit. And after that, it pushed you to the opposite, where you don't want to commit at all to anything. It was too intense. It was too crazy. But yeah, I could see how the ego was resisting the commitment after that. Yeah.
Okay, so the ego, the separate self.
The separate self thinks it is an advantage not to commit itself to anything that is eternal, because the eternal must come from pure formless awareness of perfect love. Eternalness is the one function the separate self has tried to develop, but has systematically failed to achieve.
Yeah. So eternalness. In other words, nothing will last. Nothing the separate self can make will
last, or will succeed. The separate self compromises with the issue of the eternal, just as it does with all issues touching on the real question in any way. By becoming involved with tangential issues, it hopes to hide the real question and keep it out of mind. The separate self's characteristic, busyness with non-essential.
So tangential, you understand what it means? Going off on a tangent, like it's a distraction. Distracting, I think.
Okay. Distracting issues. Okay, so becoming involved, distracting issues. By becoming involved with distracting issues, it hopes to hide the real question and keep it out of mind. The separate self's characteristic busyness with non-essentials is for precisely that purpose. So it keeps you busy, basically. The separate self keeps you busy with nothing essential or importance to get you away from your real purpose or true purpose.
Yeah, it's called business.
Yes.
Well, busyness. It's just it's one busyness. Just take out
the why.
The why and put an I, and then you've got business.
That is
so the business of the world. This is important business we've got.
I know.
Making stuff, selling stuff. All magic. What's business about? Magic, isn't it?
It is
pretty much all magic. I've got a magic solution. I've got this great solution, this great product. It's going to
You
meet your
see that
needs. Or magic.
everywhere, constantly bombarded by this ads,
Yeah.
like on YouTube,
Yeah.
everywhere.
And
Ads.
so the whole system is based on magic. You know,
Yeah.
something external to you is going to make your life better. And you know, you need this, and the marketers are very good at trying to convince you why you need stuff that you don't really need.
Yeah.
And you know, that accounts for a huge amount of activity in this world.
Yeah, that's true.
Non-essentials. You know, there's certain essentials. Yeah, you need some food, you need a place to eat, to live. You know, basics. But so much of it, you look at, you know, the economy we've created. So much of the stuff is really just non-essential. Not.
Did you have a coach or mentor to help you build this online system, like for the emails and automated emails, or like for the emails and for everything, like the landing page?
Yeah, I mean, I there's a guy called Russell Brunson. I told you about him. So he.
Oh yes, he did.
But I didn't do anything other than read his book. I was just like, okay, I'm going to read the book and kind of makes sense. So I'll go based on that. And, you know, I used his ClickFunnels, his software to build the sales funnel.
Okay.
And I just kind of I just got guided. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go with it, you know, as you work it out as you go.
Yeah, that's how I've always done everything.
I'm always been like coaches, mentors. Yeah, they charge you a lot of money.
Yeah, they do.
Like they're gonna, in the end, someone's got to do it. You know, okay, well, you can tell me how to do it, but I've still got to do it. So why am I paying you?
It takes time, though. It takes time when someone who is professional can do it, maybe quicker as well.
Yeah, but you pay for that, and the you know, it's actually good to know it yourself. You built the system yourself, so you understand it.
Yeah,
you know how to work it. Otherwise, you give your power away. Some professional's doing. He's charging you, you know, through the nose for his time, and you can't afford that to start a business because you can't. You know, who can? You got to then have capital to start it.
Yeah.
I didn't have capital. I'm just like, well, you know, my time, sweat equity, my time and energy is what I'm going to do. Use for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's carry on. So the busyness, separate self-character.
Talking about the busyness,
non-essentials. Yeah, but you know, like if you direct your attention to what's valuable, I really felt like this was a valuable use of my time.
Yes.
To spend hours and hours, you know, teaching the truth, getting it's a system that's going to help people to awaken is about, you know, the most valuable thing I could do with my time. So
yeah, that's how I feel as well. I feel the same.
Yeah, there isn't really anything, you know, there isn't a higher calling than that. So, you know, here we are at 10 o'clock at night. People are like, what are you doing? But, well, there isn't really anything better that you can do with your time.
Yeah.
Than awaken, you know, then go through a process that's awakening you and others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so separate self-characteristic busyness.
Sorry?
Yeah, we've done number 5, number 6.
So preoccupations with problems set up to be incapable of solution or set up. Preoccupations with problems set up to be incapable of solution or favorite devices separate self.
Favorite devices of the separate self or impeding learning progress.
Separate self or impeding learning progress. Preoccupation with problems set up to be incapable of solution or favorite devices of the separate self for impeding means slowing down, right? The learning progress.
Yeah,
I can see that pattern as well. I can see that pattern very clearly.
Getting preoccupied with problems that are incapable of solution. So you focus on a problem on the level of form, and it just doesn't seem like it's possible, and you get stuck on it. And you know, that problem might be your relationships or your health or your finances or you know, whatever. And then favorite diversionary tactics.
Yeah, that's where I've been stuck completely in that pattern. That's
trying to solve these problems on the level of form. But actually, it's just a diversion, a distraction to stop your learning, to put the brakes on and stop you going into pure formless awareness.
Yeah. in all these diversion, I cannot say this,
diversionary tactics.
Diversionary tactics. However, the one question that is never asked by those who pursue them is, what for? However, in all these diversionary tactics, the one question that's never asked by those who pursue them is, what for?
Yeah, what is it for, maybe? What?
Yeah, what is it for? This is the question that you must learn to ask in connection with everything. What is the purpose? Whatever it is, it will direct your efforts automatically. And when you make a decision of purpose, then you have made a decision about your future effort, a decision that will remain in effect unless you change your mind. That's funny, we're just talking about that. About purpose.
Made a decision about your future effort. A decision from main effect unless you change your mind. So purpose, if something really has purpose and meaning, then you feel inspired, don't you? Then you'll go and you'll just carry on because it's meaningful. It's not just about a short-term ego goal.
No.
So, okay, well, the purpose is to make money. That's not going to cut it. So I can promise you, when you 3 o'clock in the morning and it's like, I'm just really tired and I just want to go to sleep. The purpose, the bigger purpose, the inspired purpose is what will see you through.
See you through. What does that mean? We'll see you through.
Well, you'll carry on. You'll carry on with the process. You won't quit. A true purpose that's coming from spirit. This is what it means to be inspired. Inspiration.
Yes.
Inspired by a higher purpose rather than the motivation of the ego. The ego is motivated, but by externals. Yes. I'm motivated because I want whatever. I want the money. I want to succeed. I want the kudos of building a business, whatever. But that's not going to see you through when the going gets tough, and those rewards don't seem to be anywhere close at all. It's like you have to have a deeper purpose.
Yeah.
And so that decision of purpose, that I choose to undertake the search, I choose to awaken. I'm going to do it in a very conscious, directed way. Is what will see you through whatever difficulties and challenges you have.
I don't know. I have a feeling it's really linked to music and singing because I feel really strongly about healing through voice, liberating and healing through voice.
Yeah, well, the real purpose.
I had another inspiration tonight. Actually, I was playing the accordion before I joined in, and I was inspired playing. Something came through it, like music and sound in the accordion, and I can feel this is where I feel really aligned with my truth as well.
So you'll get directed. The purpose is at one moment. The purpose is awakening.
I have a feeling it's linked to the course as well, because I remember it really resonated when someone who's also a teacher student of the Course in Miracles was telling me I should also, like Neda Boyne's been doing, like singing songs from the course, because it came naturally. I had two songs that came naturally, and it was around the course. Actually, it was two songs that came through from the course. Actually, it was the light has come. I started playing this. The light has come, the light is here, the light. It was like it came naturally. So I really feel this is, I just must connect to the love and follow the guidance wherever it leads me. But I have a strong feeling it's linked to the course lessons. Because that's what comes through spirit. So if it comes through inspiration or in spirit, it must be, there must be something there. True. Yeah.
Okay, so we're just going to do this translation into Personalized language. So my separate self thinks it an advantage not to commit itself to anything that is eternal. Do you want to read it?
My separate self thinks it's an advantage not to commit itself to anything that is eternal, because the eternal must come from pure formless awareness of perfect love. Eternalness is the one function my separate self has tried to develop, but has systematically failed to achieve. My separate self compromises with the issue of the eternal, just as it does with all issues touching on the real question in any way. By becoming involved with distracting issues, it hopes to hide the real question and keep it out of your mind. The separate self's characteristic, busyness with non-essential, is for precisely that purpose. Preoccupations with problems set up to be incapable of solution are favorite devices of the separate self for impeding learning progress. However,
this is my separate self. We translating into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My separate self. So I'm doing it as you go. It's okay. However, in all these diversionary tactics, the one question that I never ask.
I never asked by those who never ask is what is it for? This is the question that I must learn to ask in connection with everything. What's it for? Yeah, makes sense. What is the purpose? Whatever it is, it will direct my efforts automatically. When I make a decision of purpose, then I have made a decision about my future effort. About my future effort. That will remain in effect unless I change my mind.
Okay, I'm going to read that from the top.
Very interesting, actually, this guidance, because it comes in signs as well, right, from other people as well, like especially in meditation or after meditating. I see the signs, so I shouldn't ignore those signs. Yeah.
Okay, my separate self.
Yeah, my separate self thinks it's an advantage not to commit itself to anything. I sort of just read that. Yeah, my separate self thinks it's an advantage not to commit itself to anything that is eternal, because the eternal must come from pure formless awareness of perfect love. Eternalness is the one function my separate self has tried to develop but has systematically failed to achieve. My separate self compromises with the issue of the eternal, just as it does with all issues touching on the real question in any way. By becoming involved with distracting issues, it hopes to hide the real question and keep it out of my mind. My separate self's characteristic busyness with non-essential is for precisely that purpose. Preoccupations with problems set up to be incapable of solution are favorite devices. Of my separate self for impeding learning progress. However, in all these diversionary tactics, the one question that I never ask is, what is it for? This is the question that I must learn to ask in connection with everything. What is the purpose? Whatever it is, it will direct my efforts automatically. When I make a decision of purpose, then I have made a decision about my future effort that will remain in effect unless I change my mind.
When I make a decision based on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Remain in effect unless I change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's he saying there? Summary.
That the ego has many tactics, like diversory tactics to keep you away from your true purpose, basically. It has diversory tactics to distract you and keep you busy so that you don't follow your true purpose.
Yeah. And purpose is what directs. He's saying, if this is consciously organized and directed, there must be a true purpose behind it. You're not going to awaken without the true purpose, which is awakening. So, I want to wake up entirely. I want to be done with the ego and transcend and on my way home. And while I'm here, I have a happy dream, but that's not the ultimate purpose. The ultimate purpose is not a happier life or a better separate self. The ultimate purpose is full awakening to an awareness that you are the pure formless awareness of perfect love and nothing else. Okay, so
but if you just have to be and exist, like, why would you have to be, or to do anything if you're just here to be and exist?
Well, you don't really have to do anything.
Yeah.
If you're rooted in being, then he says you need do nothing, but you may feel inspired to do something. The spirit directs you. He says the spirit needs your eyes and ears and hands and feet, and it needs your willingness.
Yes.
Because there's work to be done. While you're here, there's a great purpose. And that mighty purpose is at one-ment. And so you're here to serve the at-one-ment, and you can be very useful to that. So Yeshua's saying, well, okay, let's get busy with that. Direct your mind to the only purpose there really is, and I'll show you the way. I'll show you how to direct.
I haven't been listening then.
Yeah, well, so
well,
as you
I
get clear,
I have been listening because I'm here doing this right now, and it's taking me back.
You have. But it's about getting clearer. So the blocks that the ego puts up, it doesn't want you to find your purpose.
No, it doesn't. It's been really.
Because if you find your purpose, it's undoing it. So it doesn't want you to take the hero's journey and find your purpose and live an inspired life and inspire yourself and others and be part of the at-one-ment process, because it's undoing. So it wants you to stay in the box, just another slave in the matrix, just following the rules and just live your life out and die in that state, unawakened. That's what it wants.
Yeah.
There's something in, if you're a hero in this life, if that's your destiny, then there's something in you that says, I can't do that. I can't live that way. It's not possible.
Absolutely.
But I have to follow my heart, and I have to listen.
Yes.
And it's not the easiest path in the world. The heroes in this world, they don't take an easy path.
No.
Because the easy, so-called easy is, just follow the rules and do what's expected, fit into society. And if you're reasonably intelligent and functional, you can do all right. You can make some money and you can have, a level of material comforts, and you can have a family. You can do all of that. But is it really going to fulfill you? That's the question. Is it going to fulfill that need to awaken? No, it's not going to be. And so you have to give that all up and say, no, I'm just going to I'm just going to go for that. Just full awakening. And that's not a purpose that the world will share. Most people will go, well, you're a bit crazy and you're weird and you're strange and what are you doing and why are you doing it?
Yeah, exactly. My whole family is telling me this. I must find a job,
No,
a day job. I
that's how it
must
goes.
teach English, or I must take a normal job.
Well, that's how it goes, because the world doesn't want people to awaken. It doesn't want you to awaken. It doesn't want you to teach awakening, because that threatens the whole system. So, rather just spend your life doing something non-essential. That's okay, because at least you got a normal job, and that's
And
okay.
be depressed
And we
and
can
be
say,
miserable and be living in
got a good job
regrets.
now, and she's doing really well. She just bought herself a car. She's got and it's none of it's really real. We know that. So
it's not.
You have to trust the spirit that's going to guide you, and it's going to help you to do it. They'll find a way.
Yeah.
And that's your hero's journey, to find a way. That's going to engage. It's going to call on every bit of courage and faith and determination, that you have. You got to really go deep into the spirit.
Yeah, I can feel I'm going deep right now, because I'm trusting the guidance and I'm not doing anything else, and I'm being patient in the process. So I've been asked to be very patient. So I've been really patient and doing, just following the guidance. So I can feel it. I'm on the right track and the right path, but it's not easy.
No,
especially when the external projects all these negativity.
If it were easy, it wouldn't be a hero's journey.
No, exactly.
It's not easy.
But I'm
that's
sure it's worth it. I'm sure it's worth it.
Well, yeah. Ultimately, you know that you've experienced the benefits, and you know that ultimately, the purpose, which is awakening, makes it worth it. Because there's nothing like that love, that divine love, to feel it, to connect with it, to allow it to come through you, to teach it, to, be in that field. There's nothing like it. There's nothing that comes close.
Absolutely.
So,
well, I started doing it, and then COVID happened, and then you couldn't do workshops because you needed to be vaccinated to be able to hold the workshops here in France. It was like a big block, but it was not in my control.
Yeah, but it's okay, because the spirit will find a way.
Yeah,
find a way around it. So online.
That's
go out of France.
What I started doing.
You don't have to do it in France. You can do it in Tenerife or wherever. So there's a way. There's ways and means, and it's like, well, you find a way. I just always go, okay, well, show me the way then. There's got to be a way. Find a way, and ways come. It's just like where you thought there weren't doors, as Joseph Campbell says. But there weren't doors. Doors will open for you because you're willing and you're on your hero's journey.
Yeah,
and that's the purpose. If you have an inspired purpose, that happens. And so that's actually interesting. That it's just this course is so synchronistic with the text, with the Art of Letting Go course, because the next week we're talking about purpose, higher purpose. What's your inspired purpose? So we're going to be covering that on Sunday.
Sounds good. It sounds very good. I look forward to that.
So there's a revelation of that. If you find your inspired purpose, that takes you on your hero's journey to awakening, because you have all the experiences that you need to have to learn. In that journey, it's like the fast track.
Yes,
it's going to give you the awakening experiences, some of which will be difficult, will be challenged.
Yeah,
but it's gonna give you what you need to awaken. And so that's why you should follow it, because it's the quickest way home. But expect it is going to be challenging. It's not the easiest path. But
it's weird, because I think my husband even say something like that, say that as well. I'm gonna give you a shortcut to awakening, but it wasn't a good one. I didn't know. I didn't know it wasn't going to be a very smooth, easy, flowing one. But I
Yeah,
think he's
it's
still
not.
through it. I think he's still through it. I think it's weird how this thing works. It's like sometimes you can't even understand it. There's no need to understand. You just can't understand anything.
Yeah.
But
you
there's a
just surrender.
purpose. There's a purpose for everything.
There is indeed, yeah. Okay. So we've done the summaries. We've done the summaries translation. Do you want to do a meditation on this?
What time is it for me?
11:30 your time.
Could do a meditation.
Yeah, well, you can just you can go off to bed after that.
Yeah.
Just wondered while we were speaking, did you manage to do that payment?
I did. I sent you an email actually.
Oh, really? Okay. I haven't checked today, so thank you.
I'll send
for
you
that.
an email with the
And you mentioned you wanted a personalized I am meditation. Yeah. So you wanted.
was that a meditation? It was to get more deep into the I am, right? Or I am love. Was that what it was about?
Yeah. So the I am love. What I can do is guide a session just for you. So it's a personalized meditation for orally, and then I'll record it and send it to you. So you've got that as a personalized recording for your practice of the I am love.
That
So
would
we
be
can
nice.
yeah, okay, we can do it. I mean, I'll charge you for it, but it's it's worth it. You'll get a recording out of it you can listen to for forever. It can be something you listen to for the rest of your life. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe
okay, well,
maybe not now or this month, but
not this month. Okay, it's fine. Yeah. So whenever you're ready, let me know. Okay, so shall we do a meditation? Let's just take a 2-minute break. You okay with that? I just need to go visit the bathroom, and then we'll do it. Okay, so cool. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Just stop that recording. Pause this. All right. Aurelie, you back? Are you there? Okay, can I start? Let's do a meditation on the summary of today's section 5 of chapter 2, called the ego-body illusion. So just make yourself comfortable, sitting feet shoulder width apart, back straight. Cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes, and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clench the sphincter muscle, you lock the energy in. Roll the energy up your spine into your heart center. Putting one hand on your heart to connect with your heart space. And then drawing it up into the crown of your head, just pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. And so just scan your mind, noticing any thoughts, any emotions, body sensations going on, particularly anything that feels negative or limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. And just trying to let it go, just drop it. So you can remind yourself today's lesson, what I see is a form of vengeance, but I choose peace instead. So you can just choose to let it go, let go of the thoughts, the emotions, beliefs. Blow it all away with the breeze of your breath into the nothingness that it really is. It's going, gone. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. And you just rest here in stillness, peace and stillness. Yeah, just breathing in and out through your nose. Noticing how stomach rises and the chest rises, and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just getting into a nice deep rhythmical pattern, and you're just going to allow these words just to drop into that space in your mind. Deep connected space. Feel into these words. As an empty vessel, and just allow these to permeate in, penetrate into your deeper awareness. Nothing else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, be still, and allow these words to drop in and just bring you a message. Whatever you need to learn, whatever you need to feel and experience will come if you give it over to the Holy Spirit. And just keep watching your breath as you do this, and breathing in and out through your nose, Russian style, Anapana. Just observe the breath, going into the nostrils and out of the nostrils. And there's really nothing else you need to do. Nothing else to go, nothing else to do, just observe that. Rhythmical breathing. And out through the nose. And listen to these words. Personalized summary of the section. So, and say it after me in your own mind. Really say it as an affirmation. Affirmations of truth. So my belief in separation exerts extreme vigilance about what it permits into my awareness. Belief in separation is extremely vigilant about what it permits into my awareness. And this is not the way my mind remains sane. My mind is taken even further away from sanity because my separate self keeps its primary motivation from my awareness and values control over sanity. Thought system of separation, which gave rise to my separate self, which it serves as every reason to do this. Because my sane judgment would inevitably judge against my separate self, and so must be obliterated by it to preserve itself. Major source of my separate self's insane state is its lack of discernment between the body and pure formless awareness of perfect love. My awareness of perfect love is unacceptable to my belief in separation because it clearly points to the non-existence of the belief itself. Therefore, my separate self either distorts it or refuses to accept it, but it cannot destroy this awareness. So it tries to hide not only unacceptable body impulses, but also pure formless awareness of perfect love, because both are threatening to it. My separate self perceives them as the same because it is concerned primarily with its own preservation in the face of threat. By perceiving them as the same, my separate self attempts to save itself from being destroyed by knowledge. Any thought system that confuses pure formless awareness of perfect love and body must be insane. Yet this confusion is essential to my separate self, which judges only in terms of threat or non-threat to itself. Separate self's fear of perfect love is logical, since the idea of it does cause my belief in separation to disappear. But my fear of the body with which my separate self identifies so much makes no sense at all. So just observe this logic, which is giving us a logical argument why the separate self cannot be real, why its thought system is insane. So just keep watching your breath, breathing nice, deep, slow, rhythmical breaths in and out through the nose. So the air flowing in and the air flowing out. Touch of the breath in the nostrils. And just let the breath take you beyond the body, out of the identification with the body that Yeshua's talking about. It says, my body is my separate self's home. By my own choice. It says, the only home which my separate self feels safe is my body's vulnerability. Is its own best argument that my source cannot be perfect love. This is what my separate self must believe. Yet my separate self hates the body because it cannot accept it as good enough to be its home. This is when my mind becomes very confused. Being told by my separate self that it is really part of my body and that my body is its protector, my mind is also told the body cannot protect it. Therefore, my right mind asks, where can I go for protection? To which my separate self replies, turn to me. My right mind correctly reminds my separate self that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body. So there's no point in turning to it for protection. My separate self has no real answer to this because there is none, but it does have a typical solution. It obliterates the question from my mind's awareness. Once out of awareness, the question can and does make me uneasy, but it cannot be answered because it cannot be asked. This is the question that I must ask. Where can I go for protection? Seek and ye shall find does not mean that I should seek blindly and desperately for something I do not recognize. To meaningfully seek an answer to this question, I must consciously undertake, organize, and direct my search. I must formulate my goal clearly and keep it in mind. Learning and wanting to learn are inseparable. So I learn best when I believe that what I'm trying to learn is of value to me. However, not everything I may want to learn is lasting value. I may choose many of the things I want to learn because their value will not last. It's part of the ego's defense. My separate self thinks it is an advantage not to commit itself to anything that is eternal, because the eternal must come from pure formless awareness of perfect love. Eternalness is the one function my separate self has tried to develop but has systematically failed to achieve. There's nothing here lasts. So my separate self compromises with the issue of the eternal, just as it does with all issues touching on the real question in any way. By becoming involved with distracting issues, it hopes to hide the real question and keep it out of mind. My separate self's characteristic busyness with non-essentials is for precisely that purpose. To keep myself busy, preoccupied, problems set up to be incapable of solution. These problems are favorite devices of my separate self for impeding learning progress. However, in all these diversionary tactics, the one question that I never ask is, what is it for? This is the question I must learn to ask in connection with everything. What is the purpose? So why am I doing this? Why is the most interesting question you can ask? What is the purpose? So you can ask yourself that now. What is it for? What is any ideas going on in your mind? So allow them to percolate inwards. Whatever it is, it will direct my efforts automatically. When I make a decision based on purpose, I've made a decision about the future effort that will remain in effect unless I change my mind. So just sit with that. And what's the purpose? In your meditation, ask, what is it for? There's some thoughts going on in your mind about purpose, what you should be doing with your life. Ask, what is it for? What is the purpose? And just sit back, relax. So just sinking inwards, watch your breath, breathing in and out through your nostrils. It's going deeper and deeper with each breath. Sinking inwards, going deeper and deeper into the true self, true reality with each breath. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about, just breathe, relax, be still. Be still and know that you are God, you are love. Say your essence statement, say I am love. Love will direct my purpose. Love is the purpose. Ultimately, all purpose lies in love. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, just breathe, relax, be still for a couple of minutes and surrender into this loving awareness. Just breathe it in. So every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is in the loving awareness. Any thoughts arise, just observe them casually. Any thoughts about form, about the world, past, future, difficulties, challenges. So just let it go, flow it out. Whatever it is, thoughts, emotions, just a thought and emotion, just doesn't have true reality. Just blow it all out with the breeze of your breath. The nothingness that it really is, and surrender into the stillness, to the silence. And so when you're ready, just come back, this deep state into an awareness of the body, the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of three, you can open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in. Noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just notice all of this. It's very calm, clear, aware state. Scan your mind, those thoughts, emotions, body sensations, anything that's negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. Just remind yourself that this world is a form of vengeance. This is a form of vengeance, but I can choose peace instead. So blow it all out, letting it all go, surrendering really into this deep state of true awareness, connecting with your source. And just blow it out, say it's just a form of vengeance, but I can choose peace instead. Exhale. Notice how the air flows out, chest and the stomach suck back in. You just exhale, blow it all away. Notice how the air flows out, chest and stomach suck back in. And just rest in deep peace and stillness at the bottom of the exhale. On the count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair and your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling, your hands touching. And so just observe again body sensations in a very calm, detached way. Notice what you're feeling and touching. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth, smell in your nose. So breathing in, noticing your air flowing in. Chest and the stomach push out. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Observe all the body sensations. Just pause at the top of the inhale. Smile. So observing all the body sensations, touch, taste, sounds. Just noticing all these things from this very detached, calm state. Awareness in which there's no judgment. So just noticing everything in this clear, calm state of awareness is going to carry you to bed, to a deep, restful sleep, and very happy, inspired, flowing day tomorrow. So it is said and so it is done. So now, on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So just take a minute to look around. We'll practice today's lesson briefly. So just as you look around, you'll notice what's going on. And as you look around, just say, I see, I perceive only the perishable. I perceive nothing that lost. What I perceive is not real. What I perceive is a form of vengeance. So you're just naming default thought system and perception of the ego. Practicing one time, just letting it go. As she says at the end of each practice period, ask yourself, is this the world I really want to see, or really want to perceive? So ask yourself, is this the world I really want to perceive? And the answer says the answer is surely obvious. Who would choose to view a perishable, fearful world, unreal world, when you can choose reality instead? So just anchor the state in, whatever you're feeling, just nice and calm, peaceful, relaxed. Nice state to go to sleep in. So just, yeah, be willing to go there and just use this as a preparation for bed and a deep sleep. Prepare you for more awakening experiences tomorrow. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and tonight's session. So thank you, Orly, and namaste.
Thank you. Namaste. See you tomorrow.
All right. Yeah. Sleep well.
You
See
too.
you normal time tomorrow, 1:30 your time.
Yeah.
Okay. Namaste.
Namaste.